Chapter 1239. There was no doubt that the battle between pure young cultivators would cause destruction to this part of the world. Therefore, during the battle, they would open up a space as a battlefield. In this battlefield, the surrounding void would not be shaken. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it would be fragmented. Under such circumstances, not to mention using form displacement transposition, such an action was tantamount to seeking one's own death. However, the moment Earth Spirit summoned the heaven-opening divine weapon, the four ape-headed creatures that appeared on top of the cauldron of heaven and earth could easily shuttle through this fragmented space without being harmed. Moreover, the moment that red-haired, ape-headed creature jumped into Fire Spirit's body, even Fire Spirit himself had the ability to shuttle through the fragmented space. Eighth Sister Zhu and the others felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this. How could they not know what kind of predicament the paste would face when the pure young five had this ability? At this moment, Yuan Pokong seemed to have thought of something and shouted, "Ape-headed creatures, they are the artifact spirits of the cauldron of heaven and earth. Stop them. Don't let them fuse with the pure young five." However, it was too late. Four ape-headed artifact spirits jumped out of the cauldron of heaven and earth. Apart from the red-haired artifact spirit who had fused with Fire Spirit and escaped Xiao Baiyu's second slash, a yellow-haired artifact spirit took the lead and fused with Earth Spirit. A green-haired ape head appeared on Wood Spirit's body, and the golden-haired ape head merged with Gold Spirit's body. Earth Spirit laughed sinisterly. "You think that we can't form the pure young five elements great formation after breaking the formation diagram of the pure young five elements great formation? Naive. The pure young five elements great formation originally evolved from the cauldron of heaven and earth. It can be said that the cauldron of heaven and earth is the true formation diagram of the pure young five elements great formation. Moreover, the pure young five elements great formation laid out with the cauldron of heaven and earth will be even more powerful. After the four pure young Laozu fused with the four ape-headed artifact spirits, they all used their spatial abilities and disappeared into the void. This caused Xiao Baiyu and the others' plan to besiege the pure young five elements great formation to fail completely. The moment the four disappeared, Xiao Baiyu reacted and shouted, "Quick, kill Shui Lingzi." After the cauldron of heaven and earth appeared, there were only four ape-head weapon spirits. Among the pure young five sons, only Shui Lingzi had not merged with the ape head. Just as Xiao Baiyu was shouting, the other pure young cultivators had already realized something. They turned around and wanted to kill Shui Lingzi. Haha, it's too late to think of it now. The other four pure young masters appeared beside Shui Lingzi the moment they disappeared. The five of them worked together to block the attacks from Shui Lingzi. Tu Lingzi raised his hand and said, "Let me show you the true power of the pure young five elemental formation." The Qiankuan wine cauldron released a more intense five-colored light than the previous pure young five elements great formation. Xiao Baiyu saw that things were not going well and shouted, "Retreat!" After saying that, the natal spiritual sword in his hand, which had merged with the broken sky-breaking sword, slashed across the sky. The other pure young masters also followed suit. However, the five-colored light of the Qiankuan treasure cauldron spread much faster than the space they were trying to break. Before they could leave, the broken space was restored to its original state. The exit of the space that was created by the pure young masters was also destroyed. Xiao Baiyu slashed his sword again. This time, even the spiritual treasure that had merged with the broken sky-breaking sword could not break the surrounding space, let alone the other seven pure young masters. The five-colored light gradually merged, and a brand new five elements great formation was formed again. It was bigger, stronger, and more powerful than the previous pure young five elements great formation. In the center of the invisible space, the Qiankuan wine cauldron was floating high in the sky. Below it, the pure young five sons stood in the positions of the five elements. Even the fire spirit, who had been seriously injured before, was now surrounded by a strong aura. Xiao Baiyu frowned. He knew that the situation was not good now. He hurriedly said, "Gather." The seven pure young cultivators quickly gathered around Xiao Baiyu. Everyone knew that they were now trapped in the pure young five elements great formation again. Moreover, it was the most advanced pure young five elements great formation with the heaven-opening artifact, the Qiankuan wine cauldron, as the array diagram. At this time, if there was a trace of hesitation, the consequences might be death. Therefore, after everyone heard Xiao Baiyu's order, they all gathered around him. At this time, only by gathering in front of Xiao Baiyu, the strongest pure young cultivator, might there be a glimmer of hope to escape. Although the pure young five sons had already rearranged the more powerful pure young five elements great formation, it was still the artifact used by Ape Taoist of the seventh patriarch. Earth Spirit could bring it here. Even the pure young five sons could only barely use it, and could only use part of the power of this heaven-opening artifact. However, if these 8 people were to gather together again, although the pure young five sons were confident that they could still defeat the 8 of them with the power of the artifact, it would undoubtedly take a long time. At this time, in order to gather and merge the 2 water veins, the Wuxing school had reached the most critical moment. At this time, everyone in the Wuxing school naturally hoped to cut the Gordian knot with a knife to cut the knot quickly. Seeing that the 8 people were about to gather together again, the fire spirit shouted angrily and said, "Want to gather? Not so easy." The fire spirit was injured before. At this time, although he temporarily recovered his strength, in fact, it was because of the spirit of the heaven and earth treasure cauldron. After the spirit left the state of fusion, the fire spirit would inevitably return to the state of serious injury again. This time, the injury was directly inflicted on his body. Therefore, the previous attack by Lin Yu and Lao Zu almost destroyed the fire spirit's hope of further improvement in the future. The fire spirit was the first to activate the 5 elements great formation, but he forgot that the 5 elements great formation with the heaven and earth wine cauldron was very powerful. Before this, the 5 of them rarely had the opportunity to directly use this supreme artifact to practice the 5 elements great formation, because the cooperation between the 5 of them was far less smooth than the big formation formed by the 5 elements great formation. The fire spirit was the first to make a move, but the other 4 didn't have the time to catch up, especially the water spirit, who didn't have a spirit to fuse with. If he wanted to cooperate and drive the 5 elements great formation, he needed to consume a lot more Zhenyuan than the other 4, so he was the slowest. Fenglu, Shimin Mingyu, and the others all got rid of the shackles of the great formation and gathered with Xiao Baiyu. However, 8th Sister Zhu and Lin Yu Laozu were one step slower. They were confined by the fire spirit's formation. At this time, although they were still gathering with Xiao Baiyu and the others, their speed was extremely slow. Fenglu and the others turned around and helped 8th Sister Zhu, while Yuan Pokong and Xiao Baiyu helped Lin Yu Laozu at the same time. The sky-opening broken sword in Xiao Baiyu's hand slashed in the air, and Lin Yu Laozu suddenly felt that the shackles around his body seemed to be removed by the 2 slashes in the air. Then, he saw the spiritual treasure long stick in Yuan Pokong's hand extended for a few feet and directly reached in front of him. Lin Yu Laozu was overjoyed. He grabbed the other end of the long stick, and as Yuan Pokong pulled, a strong force pulled Lin Yu Laozu all the way forward, almost at the same time as 8th Sister Zhu and the others. Earth Spirit snorted coldly. Although the pure young 5 elements great formation could be controlled by anyone, the pure young 5 warriors were usually led by Earth Spirit, who had the highest cultivation. Earth Spirit was a little dissatisfied with the Fire Spirit's random attack this time, but he also understood the Fire Spirit's mood at this time. Everyone saw the Fire Spirit's previous attack that injured the Fire Spirit. At their level of cultivation, no one could understand better than them what it meant for their physical body to suffer such a serious injury. Turn! Earth Spirit shouted in a low voice, and the pure young 5 warriors formed different hand seals at the same time. Then, the cauldron of heaven and earth that was floating in the air began to make a buzzing sound, and the surrounding space was constantly changing. Xiao Baiyu and the others gathered together, and for a moment, they were at a loss. Xiao Baiyu's eyes shot out a strange light as he looked at the pure young 5 warriors, but he saw that among the 5 of them, the water spirit seemed to be struggling when performing the hand seals. Thinking of the 4 ape-head spirits that jumped out of the cauldron of heaven and earth, none of them merged with the water spirit. Xiao Baiyu whispered to everyone, "The water spirit seems to be a breakthrough point. This time, we will take the initiative to attack, but we must not separate." As soon as Xiao Baiyu's voice fell, the pure young 5 warriors and the cauldron of heaven and earth disappeared together. Everyone was taken aback, and they saw Earth Spirit suddenly appear above everyone's head. His hands suddenly pressed down, and a force that was 10 times stronger than before descended from the sky. Everyone felt as if they were carrying a mountain on their shoulders in an instant. At the same time, when Earth Spirit summoned the cauldron of heaven and earth, in the water vein of Qingming River, the aura of the water ape that seemed to have become extremely weak and had been suppressed by Lu Ping all the way suddenly skyrocketed, as if the power that it had previously lost was completely replenished in such an instant. The situation that was originally suppressed by Lu Ping suddenly changed its position, and the small half of the water vein that had been controlled by Lu Ping was instantly taken over by the water ape from Lu Ping's hands in the blink of an eye. You should have escaped before, but now you have no chance. The surrounding water vein began to be resealed bit by bit. Although Lu Ping still had space to move around, he no longer had the opportunity to break through the water vein. Greedy and insatiable, do you know who I am? How dare you even think of taking advantage of me? The Linglong wine cauldron was suspended above Lu Ping's head, and at this time, under the continuous counterattacks of the water ape, it was constantly trembling, as if it was afraid for a moment. Lu Ping used the water control technique to control the Linglong wine cauldron and tried his best to compete with the water ape for control of the water vein of Qingming River, but at this time, he was constantly losing. Do you know who I am? But suddenly, Lu Ping discovered that the Sea of 100 Rivers had started to break free from his control. Lu Ping turned pale with fright and spread out his divine sense. Only then did he realize that the water ape had secretly done something. He was secretly shocked. He didn't think that the Sea of 100 Rivers sword technique could be broken in such a way. Could it be that this water ape was extremely familiar with the sword technique that he cultivated? Could it be that the North Sea wave listening technique that he cultivated was a technique that had been passed down from ancient times to Jiaodaoren? However, just as Lu Ping's divine sense spread out with all its might, he suddenly discovered an unfamiliar and extremely faint divine sense within the water vein. Lu Ping hadn't noticed it during the battle. Now that he suddenly discovered it, the divine sense disappeared like a startled rabbit. However, even such a short period of time was enough for Lu Ping to confirm that the divine sense had come from the water ape before him. Lu Ping was secretly shocked. There had long been rumors that after a spiritual treasure survived the third thunder trial and became a pure young spiritual treasure, its weapon spirit would be able to leave its body and walk the world. It would even look no different from an ordinary cultivator. Now, it seemed that this was indeed the case. This water ape weapon spirit not only had extremely powerful abilities, it even had the divine sense of a normal cultivator. However, this divine sense did not seem to be very strong. In fact, it seemed extremely weak. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that there was some hidden secret that he didn't know about? In an instant, Lu Ping spread out his own divine sense, which far exceeded that of a late Dharma adept and was even comparable to a pure young divine sense. However, the weak divine sense from before had disappeared without a trace. No matter how hard Lu Ping tried, he couldn't find any trace of it. However, at this moment, Lu Ping sensed that the water ape was acting strangely. This water ape had obviously noticed the powerful divine sense that Lu Ping had spread out. However, Lu Ping's divine sense was so strong that the water ape was momentarily stunned and even panicked. Lu Ping, however, suddenly realized that this type of weapon spirit was able to stand out because it possessed intelligence that was no less than that of an ordinary person. The water ape in front of him was obviously a pure young weapon spirit that had survived the third thunder trial. Its intelligence was even more refined, and it could even leave its body and exist. However, it was ultimately just a weapon spirit. Although it had also developed divine sense, it was extremely weak. However, this weak divine sense was extremely important to it. And this was the weakness of weapon spirits. Due to the lack of sufficiently strong divine sense to protect it, it was extremely easy for other, more powerful divine senses to invade it. In fact, it could even be completely erased by a practitioner with a more powerful divine sense. It was at this moment that Lu Ping's Sea of 100 Rivers sword skill suddenly crumbled. Just like that, his peerless sword skill was easily broken by the water ape. However, Lu Ping was not shocked. Instead, he was delighted. He secretly speculated that the countless tiny streams of water had been able to seep into Lu Ping's sword light. Was it because he had obtained this strange divine sense? After Lu Ping's supreme magic power had been broken, Lu Ping's situation had become even more difficult. The water manipulation technique was still unable to gain the upper hand in the battle for control of the water vein. All Lu Ping could do was try his best to delay the water ape's suppression of the water vein space. Lu Ping's divine sense filled the surrounding water vein space. Previously, Lu Ping had been truly frightened by the water ape's identity as a weapon spirit of the heaven-opening artifact. After a series of exchanges, Lu Ping had been absolutely suppressed by the water ape. He had forgotten that the water ape in front of him was ultimately just a weapon spirit. Even if it could be a pure young weapon spirit or an existence of a higher level, as long as it was still a weapon spirit, its spiritual intelligence and divine sense would always be its weakness compared to the other abilities it possessed. However, Lu Ping did not impatiently attempt to use his own divine sense to invade or even erase the water ape's spiritual intelligence. Although Lu Ping was now very confident in the cultivation of his divine sense, Lu Ping had previously captured the water ape's divine sense. This weapon spirit had actually cultivated divine sense. Although it looked extremely weak, a weapon spirit of a heaven-opening artifact with divine sense was still somewhat of a fear to Lu Ping. The spiritual essence in Lu Ping's body surged, and a pair of purple jade bracelets encircled his body. Then, two purple-blue halos burst out in all directions, once again expanding the range of movement that Lu Ping could move around. Then, a bell rose next to Linglong's wine cauldron. However, this spiritual-level magic treasure looked very dazzling among all the spirit treasures Lu Ping had on him. Lu Ping condensed his divine sense into a hammer and fiercely struck the bronze bell suspended in midair. Dong! Lu Ping's divine sense sent a slight stab of pain. Fortunately, this bell was only a spiritual-level magic treasure. If Lu Ping used his divine sense to strike the real vast sea bell, he would probably have to use the cloud sail to protect his divine sense in advance. The strange bell sound directly passed through the water veins and exploded in the water ape's ears. Caught off guard, the water ape only shivered. Lu Ping could clearly sense that in that instant, the water ape's control over the surrounding water veins had weakened to a certain extent. Two purple halos burst out of Lu Ping's purple jade bracelets again. He exerted his water manipulation technique in succession and immediately regained control over a part of the water veins, temporarily improving his situation. However, at this moment, the one who truly felt lucky was Lu Ping. This was because the moment when Lu Ping used the imitation of the vast sea bell to launch a divine sense attack on the water ape was able to break free from this divine sense attack in an instant. The cultivation of this water ape's divine sense was clearly inferior to Lu Ping's. However, under the full force of its contraction, the water ape's artifact spirit body was able to defend itself, and it might not be able to break free from the direct threat of Lu Ping's divine sense. This water ape's divine sense protection was clearly beyond Lu Ping's expectations. Fortunately, Lu Ping had not directly used his own divine sense to attack this artifact spirit. Otherwise, with its current display of divine sense protection, even someone as strong as Lu Ping would most likely suffer a loss. What a cunning artifact spirit! It was worthy of being nurtured by a heaven-opening artifact. It had actually disguised its weakest point as a trap for Lu Ping to jump into. However, this was ultimately its weakness. Thus, Lu Ping simply wrapped the cloud sail around him. Apart from leaving a portion of his divine sense to monitor the water ape in front of him, the rest of it condensed into a hammer and struck the bronze bell repeatedly. Dong! 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 This kind of attack could actually be considered a method of killing 1,000 enemies while injuring 800 of oneself. As the hammer of divine sense rang the imitation of the vast sea bell, it was also destroying one's own divine sense. However, Lu Ping could afford this. His divine sense was originally far superior to that of the artifact spirit. Now, Lu Ping was using the cloud sail to protect his divine sense, while the water ape's artifact spirit had a natural disadvantage in terms of divine sense cultivation. As Lu Ping continued to use the vast sea bell as a form of divine sense attack, the water ape could only retreat in defeat. After 18 consecutive rings of the bell, Lu Ping once again seized control of a considerable portion of the water vein from the hands of the water ape. Once again, he could advance and retreat as he pleased. At this time, it would not be difficult for Lu Ping to break through the water vein and retreat. However, since he had already found the artifact spirit's weakness, it would be too much of a pity for Lu Ping to give up this opportunity to indirectly fight against the heaven-opening artifact. Lu Ping waved his sleeves, and a strange pair of scissors appeared in his hands. A huge praying mantis lay on Lu Ping's back and stared at the water ape in front of it. It waved its pair of large blades back and forth. Suddenly, Lu Ping shouted at the water ape as if to boost his own courage, but also as if to provoke it, "I am not afraid of you." Chapter 1241. Lu Ping had already seen the absolute suppression displayed by the artifact spirits due to the difference in levels. He only needed to look at the current state Linglong was in when facing the water ape to understand. If Lu Ping had not forcibly used his inner yuan to control the Linglong wine cauldron, Lu Ping had no doubt that Linglong would have fled with her real body. When Lu Ping first revealed the split mantis in two, the water ape couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. Lu Ping had already expected this. After all, the spirit treasure scissors was only a second tribulation spirit treasure, so how could it compare to a heaven-opening divine artifact? However, the mantis in two shout that followed immediately surprised Lu Ping. This fellow actually dared to provoke the water ape. But when Lu Ping wielded the spirit treasure, he could clearly feel the fear in the mantis in two's heart. This was strange. When the water ape saw the mantis on Lu Ping's shoulder and the scissors in Lu Ping's hand, its expression changed, which was rarely seen. It said, "The water transformation talisman, this item has fallen into your hands." Lu Ping was astonished. He did not know how the spirit treasure had become a talisman in the eyes of the water ape. He only remembered that the two spirit seals on the spirit treasure had transformed into half a talisman. Could it be that the half talisman was the true appearance of the spirit treasure, and the other half talisman was the water transformation talisman that the water ape spoke of? Lu Ping naturally knew about the legend of the water transformation talisman. The water transformation talisman that the water ape spoke of was naturally not an ordinary talisman in the world of cultivation. It was a divine talisman that could separate the battle between Jiao Daoren and Peng Daoren in the hands of Daoist Chan. It could also completely eliminate the aftermath of their battle. It was also the true cause of the storm that formed between the world of cultivation in the Central Plains and the world of cultivation in the overseas region. Although Lu Ping was secretly delighted, he did not show any mercy. Surging inner yuan surged into the scissors, and two purple-blue blade lights shot out 300 feet. Then, the two blade lights intersected and slashed at the water ape's head. Although the water ape was suppressed by Lu Ping's divine sense bell, it only had a slight upper hand. The advantage of the divine sense was limited. The water ape was at a disadvantage, but it did not lose the ability to fight back. At best, Lu Ping had only turned the situation around because of the surprise attack of the divine sense. However, when Lu Ping wielded the scissors towards the water ape seemed to be greatly afraid of the scissors. For the first time, it began to dodge while entangled with Lu Ping. The blade lights closed, but the water ape had disappeared into thin air. However, when the blade lights crossed, a long opening was easily torn open. Outside was the surging Qingming River that flowed along the canal. The water vein being torn apart naturally didn't attract Lu Ping's attention. What he was wary of was the water ape's sudden use of the space technique. During the intense battle between the two, even the space in the water vein was in a state of chaos. Yet, the water ape still dared to use the space technique. Wasn't it afraid that it would be torn apart by the turbulent space? However, the truth was that this water ape was very skilled in using its spatial ability and did not fear the turbulence of space. In the face of the sneak attack of the water ape, the evenly matched situation that Lu Ping had worked so hard to accumulate was lost once again. He once again fell into a passive position. Lu Ping did not understand how the water ape could easily travel through space when the space was so turbulent. He could only attribute it to the mystical heaven-splitting artifact. Fortunately, Lu Ping's divine sense had strengthened the water ape's artifact spirit. Although it was difficult to track the water ape's movements due to its ability to travel through space, Lu Ping was still able to capture its movements the moment it appeared. Then, the scissors would swing its scissors in the water ape's direction, and most of the time, the scissors would be able to cut before the water ape could react. In the beginning, the water ape's ability to travel through space at will made Lu Ping very difficult. At one point, Lu Ping was suppressed to the point that he could only wander around in the water vein. However, as Lu Ping's divine sense covered the entire area, he took advantage of the water ape's fear of the scissors. Gradually, he was able to snatch the initiative of the water ape the moment it appeared. Gradually, the situation returned to a stalemate. As the two sides fought more and more fiercely, Lu Ping gradually began to calm down. He tried to predict the water ape's appearance in space in advance. Soon, Lu Ping's divine sense seemed to be able to detect the subtle fluctuations that the water ape's artifact spirit caused when it traveled through space. Lu Ping was secretly delighted. The water ape's previous travel through space was too strange. There was almost no trace of it during the process. After Lu Ping calmed down and used all his strength to control his divine sense, after a period of competition, Lu Ping's divine sense finally began to gradually capture some clues. It wasn't that the water ape's ability to easily travel through space was untraceable. It was just that Lu Ping's divine sense simply wasn't able to detect the slight fluctuations caused by the water ape's spatial magic. Only now did Lu Ping realize that this wasn't because his divine sense wasn't careful enough. It was because during this period of battle, his divine sense was gradually improving. Moreover, as Lu Ping continued to control his divine sense to capture the water ape's traces, this improvement became more and more obvious. Finally, just as the water ape disappeared, Lu Ping caught a glimpse of a subtle ripple coming from the water vein space. Lu Ping pondered for a moment and abruptly cut the spirit treasure in half in the direction of the ripple. Two rays of light crossed each other. Just at this moment, the water ape came out from the direction of the fluctuation and saw the two rays of light descending on its body. The water ape let out a strange cry and wanted to break through space to escape, but it was too late. The two rays of light descended and the water ape let out a miserable cry. Its body drilled back into space and appeared in another direction, viciously staring at Lu Ping. In the direction of the two rays of light, an ape tail separated from the water ape's body and was cut off by the spirit treasure scissors. The ape tail that was cut off didn't wait for it to land before it dissipated into specks of light. On the other side, the water ape gloomily roared, "You think you can hurt this old ape? It won't be so easy." A ray of light condensed behind the water ape and gradually turned into an ape tail. The water ape swung its tail left and right as if it was adapting to its new tail. It also looked like it was showing off to Lu Ping and mocking him for his futile efforts. Lu Ping didn't care at all. The spirit treasure scissors in his hand closed up toward the water ape again. The water ape let out a cold snort and disappeared back into space. However, Lu Ping's attack was just a bluff. The scissors didn't reveal any inch-long blade lights. The moment the water ape entered the void, Lu Ping once again clearly sensed a slight disturbance in another part of the void. Then, the scissors opened up again and closed right when the water ape reappeared. The water ape let out another miserable cry. This time, it dropped an arm and retreated once more. However, the water ape didn't seem to believe this and tried to attack Lu Ping several times. However, Lu Ping took advantage of this opportunity to cut off one of its legs and one of its ears. Once, it almost cut off its neck. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" The praying mantis yelled on Lu Ping's shoulder. Its two large blades crisscrossed and swung up and down. Every time it swung, two rays of light would shoot out. Seeing the treasure spirit of the heaven and earth treasure cauldron flee in panic, the praying mantis was very excited. Lu Ping had also been attacked by the water ape several times, but Lu Ping had the protection of the cloud sail and the purple jade bracelets. Although the water ape's attack was very strange, and sometimes it couldn't accurately track its movements, it still couldn't truly injure Lu Ping. The water ape artifact spirit was finally convinced that Lu Ping could still control the trajectory of its spatial technique and predict where it would appear in advance. Light flashed again, and the wound on the water ape's body healed once more. However, this time, the water ape didn't try to attack Lu Ping again. Instead, it hid far away on the other side of the water vein and looked at Lu Ping with an uncertain gaze. Although the water ape was able to quickly recover after being cut by Lu Ping could still feel that the color of the water ape's body was gradually fading. To be more precise, its body was gradually becoming illusory. Lu Ping thought to himself, it seemed like the water ape was only using its own accumulated energy to make up for the lack of damage. Without the support of the main body, even if the water ape's grade was high enough, it would still become weaker as time went on. Lu Ping's heart calmed down. It was only then that he noticed that the water vein space had become fragmented. He couldn't help but be surprised. Only then did he realize that every time Lu Ping attacked the water ape's artifact spirit with the spirit scissors, the scissors would cut a hole in the water vein space. But strangely, the holes never healed. Previously, when Lu Ping fought the water ape spirit, whether it was the dual flying swords or any other means, it wasn't difficult for him to break open the water vein. However, the water vein would usually close up right after it was broken open. But now, the water vein was like a piece of rag, and it still hadn't closed up. And this was all caused by the spirit treasure scissors. The scissors could actually cut open the water vein. Lu Ping was secretly surprised. Could this be because of the half-a-water transformation talisman? No wonder the water ape was so surprised when it saw the spirit treasure break in half. Our old Yuan cannot be killed. If you know what's good for you, then retreat now. Although our old Yuan cannot deal with you right now, you should be able to guess that the people and forces behind our old Yuan are not people you can provoke. The water ape suddenly changed its arrogant attitude and spoke to Lu Ping. You only found a way to deal with old Yuan, but you can't do anything to him. If we continue to be in a stalemate like this, once they free up their hands, you, a minor repairs master, will die. Chapter 1242. In the Pure Young Five Elements formation, every time the Pure Young Five Sons made a move, they carried the power of the five elements of five people. Although Xiao Baiyu and others tried their best to fight with the power of everyone, they were firmly suppressed by the Pure Young Five Sons. In the beginning, because the Pure Young Five Sons were not familiar with the heaven-opening artifact like Treasure Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, the Pure Young Five Elements formation was not running smoothly, and Xiao Baiyu and others could barely resist the impact of the Pure Young Five Sons with their combined strength. However, as time went on, the Pure Young Five Sons became more familiar with the Heaven and Earth Wine Cauldron and the Pure Young Five Elements array. The five elements complemented each other, so the five people's chi was replenished as much as possible. The Pure Young Five Sons became braver as they fought. On the contrary, although Xiao Baiyu and others could resist the joint strangulation of the Pure Young Five with the help of the 8 Pure Young Masters at the beginning, as time went by, the consumption of the 8 people's real essence increased greatly. Under this situation, Xiao Baiyu and others were still at a disadvantage. At this time, they were just struggling under the strangulation of the Pure Young Five Elements formation. What should we do? If this goes on, everyone will be killed by the Pure Young Five Sons sooner or later. Eighth Sister Zhu's eyes were already red. She asked everyone, but her eyes were staring at Xiao Baiyu. Xiao Baiyu's expression was still calm. As everyone's chi was exhausted, Lin Yu, Lao Zhu, and the others were becoming more and more powerless. Under the attack of the Pure Young Five Sons, there were several loopholes. If it wasn't for Xiao Baiyu's sudden eruption at this time to plug the loopholes one by one, everyone would have been defeated by the Pure Young Five Sons. While everyone secretly admired Xiao Baiyu, they couldn't help but wonder where the limits of his strength were. He was able to maintain his tyrannical strength after making up for the loopholes several times. Under the situation where everyone's strength was declining, Xiao Baiyu's performance was indeed rising all the way. In fact, at this time, Xiao Baiyu did not have a good way, but at this time, He knew that only by gathering more people together could it be possible to hold on for a longer time. So he would show his strength without reservation and try his best to help everyone not to fall behind under the attack of the pure young five. Xiao Baiyu thought about it and said, "From the beginning until now, besides Shui Lingzi, the others have taken turns to attack, but Shui Lingzi has not been seen." Previously, when the formation was formed, Shui Lingzi did not merge with the Qinkuan wine cauldron spirit. Perhaps because of this, she does not have the strength to travel through space like the other four. At the same time, she cannot gather the cultivation of the other four. Before, we determined that she is the weakest among the pure young five, and now it is still the same, but we need to find her. Find it? Shimin Mingyu disagreed and said coldly, "Now the 8 of us are not moving, and it is not enough to resist their attack together. If we move to find Shui Lingzi, it will be difficult to have the tacit understanding when we move, and it will be easier for others to take advantage of us." Seven Fans Laozu said, "Waiting here is also a death, and taking the initiative to find Shui Lingzi is also a death. The difference is only sooner or later. Instead of that, it is better to give it a try, and maybe there will be a chance of survival." Everyone understood the truth, but there was always a lack of a brave person to take the lead. Seven Fans Laozu directly pierced through this layer of truth, and everyone no longer had any doubts. They began to work together, and began to move in the general direction where the Qinkuan treasure cauldron was. Under the pure young 5 elements formation, on the surface of the Luoya River, Golden Cicada Laozu had already activated the half of the water transformation talisman to the size of 3 feet. The dazzling white light was flashing, and even the colorful light of the 5 elements formation could not cover it. It had already attracted the attention of many practitioners who participated in the attack on Wuxing School and the water vein. Previously, nearly 20 great practitioners of the late Dharma Law's stage had joined forces to attack the practitioners of Wuxing School, but they were trapped in the small 5 elements formation by 5 great practitioners of Wuxing School. However, compared to the real pure young 5 elements formation, this formation could barely trap more than 10 great practitioners. After some effort, there were still 4 or 5 people who rushed out of the small 5 elements formation, but the rest were held back by the 5 great practitioners of Wuxing School in the 5 elements formation. Just after Golden Cicada Laozu's identity was exposed, everyone knew that this most famous formation master of Wuxing School was probably the key to the 2 water veins of Qingming and Yulan. The 4 or 5 great practitioners who had broken free from the small 5 elements formation immediately rushed towards him. At the same time, another 2 or 3 great practitioners jumped out, and there were even more than 20 early and middle Dharma Law's adepts behind them. They all rushed towards Golden Cicada Laozu together. Faced with the attack of more than 30 Dharma Law's adepts, Golden Cicada Laozu could not help but frown, but he did not take it to heart. Indeed, just as these 30 Dharma Law's adepts rushed close to the pure young 5 elements formation, under the cover of the colorful light of the pure young 5 elements formation, another 5 great practitioners of Wuxing School jumped out. Immediately after, 10 mid-Dharma Law's adepts also appeared behind these 5 great practitioners. These 10 mid-Dharma Law's adepts included Mu Changsheng, Shui Jiro, and the 5 great disciples of the 3rd generation of Wuxing School. These 15 Dharma Law's adepts joined forces and once again formed a 5 elements formation, protecting Golden Cicada Laozu in the center. This time, they did not have the help of the array map. However, the more people there were in the 5 elements Dao Soldier array, the bigger the array was, and the more powerful it would be. The Dao Soldier array, formed by 15 people, was only concerned with defense, protecting Elder Golden Cicada as he successfully cast his spell at the intersection of the 2 water veins. No matter how the 30 Dharma adepts attacked, the Dao Soldier array was still impregnable. However, at this time, Golden Cicada Laozu's frown did not ease in the slightest. At this time, the water-dissolving talisman in front of him was about to be activated to its peak, but the 2 water channels under his feet were restless. More accurately, the water channels of the Qingming River had not calmed down. Previously, the artifact spirit of the divine instrument of his sect had promised that even if the 2 water channels could not merge, he would be able to intertwine the 2 water channels together. At this time, As long as Golden Cicada Laozu activated half of the water-dissolving talisman that was personally made by Taoist Chan and inserted it into the two water channels, the two water channels would naturally merge. But now, the two water channels had not intertwined. In this case, if the water-dissolving talisman could not contain the two water channels, it was very likely that the two water channels could not be connected. Could it be that something had happened to the artifact spirit of the divine instrument? But then, Golden Cicada Laozu shook his head. The artifact spirit of the divine instrument was not so easy to deal with. Even if it had left its body, this artifact spirit specialized in controlling the water channels. In the water channels, it could even have an immortal body. Even pure young adepts would have a headache if they saw it. Moreover, how could there be other people in the water channels at this time? Let's wait a little longer. Golden Cicada Laozu looked at the minor 5 elements formation not far away. There, the 5 senior and junior brothers were already doing their best to hold on. The minor 5 elements formation was already on the verge of collapse. Golden Cicada Laozu's heart sank a little. I hope I won't have to wait too long. In the water channels of the Qingming River, the chase between Lu Ping and the water ape artifact spirit was still going on. From time to time, the water ape would let out a scream because Lu Ping had predicted where it would appear. Although the water ape artifact spirit was constantly being weakened by Lu Ping, it never escaped. Instead, it continued to fight with Lu Ping in the water channels. This also made Lu Ping more and more certain of his guess. Just when the water ape artifact spirit escaped the strangulation of the scissors and went into the space of the water channels, Lu Ping flicked his sleeve and a bead, shining with colorful light, instantly sank into the edge of the water channels. Then, it lost its luster and turned into an inconspicuous bead that was one with the water channels. Lu Ping did this again and again. Although the water ape artifact spirit's body grew dimmer and dimmer, Lu Ping still didn't manage to injure it in the slightest. And while the water ape artifact spirit was constantly shuttling through space to dodge Lu Ping's attacks, Lu Ping shot the 12 origin Chen beads into the water vein surroundings one after another. The water ape artifact spirit scolded loudly. "You're crazy. Why do you always use that scissors to cut me? You can't kill me. When the people of Wuxing School are free, you will be the one to die. Are you really not afraid of death?" Lu Ping smiled coldly and said, "I can't kill you? That's not necessarily true." The water ape artifact spirit was taken aback for a moment. Then, as if he had thought of something, the water ape artifact spirit burst into laughter. "Do you think that exhausting this old ape's accumulations will be enough to make this old ape dissipate just because my body is getting dimmer and dimmer? You're too naive." Lu Ping raised his eyebrows slightly, but the scissors in his hand did not stop. He smiled and said, "Why? Can't I do it?" The water ape sneered and said, "Who do you think I am? I'm the artifact spirit of a heaven-opening artifact. As long as I don't go too far away from my body, I can travel through the void on my own. Don't be fooled by the fact that my body is getting dimmer and dimmer. With my body nearby supporting me, you're far from being able to make me dissipate completely. Moreover, even if it's a critical moment, I only need to withdraw and return to my body. Even a pure young cultivator can't do anything about it." The corner of Lu Ping's mouth twitched slightly and he said, "If you can withdraw and leave, why aren't you leaving now?" The water ape was stunned. Then, it saw that a 9th-grade white jade lotus had suddenly appeared in Lu Ping's hand. The moment the lotus appeared in Lu Ping's hand, it bloomed. Countless spirit inscriptions flickered and connected on the petals, forming a complete array diagram. The water ape instinctively felt that something was wrong. Just as it was about to turn around and retreat, it suddenly found that there were 12 beads shining with colorful light in the surrounding water vein space. They echoed the white feather lotus array diagram from afar, forming a complete gentian array space. The water ape artifact spirit's face changed when it saw the 12 colorful gentian beads. It took a step forward and wanted to crash into the void as usual. Unexpectedly, this time, it hit a wall with a bang. The water ape artifact spirit retreated a few steps in succession. When it raised its head again, not only had its face changed, but it also had a look of panic. It cried out involuntarily, How is this possible? This is actually the 12 Gentian array space. How can you possibly set up the 12 Gentian array space? This time, not only the water ape artifact spirit, but also Lu Ping's face changed. Chapter 1243. The cultivation world had been passed down since ancient times. It was not as if there were no cultivation techniques that had been passed down to the seventh patriarch. Therefore, when Lu Ping's cultivation technique, the North Sea Wave listening technique, was called out by the water ape and passed down to Zhao Daoren, although he was surprised, he felt that it was only natural. This was because it was not shocking to be able to see the general details of the inheritance. Many pure young patriarchs and even grand cultivators who had lived for a long time could see this. Moreover, the artifact spirit in front of them was the artifact spirit of the cauldron of heaven and earth, a heaven-opening artifact. It had existed since the beginning of the world, so it was naturally knowledgeable. However, the 12 Gentian formation was different. Although this formation inheritance was obtained by Lu Ping together with the North Sea Wave listening technique, the cultivation method of this natal formation had always been recorded in a way of exploration, speculation, and even hypothesis. In other words, this should be a newly created inheritance that had not been put into practice in actual cultivation. In fact, although Lu Ping rarely used this ultimate technique in the cultivation world, there were still people who had seen it before. But none of them could recognize the array formation's true origin. Lu Ping's natal array formation was a rare sight in the cultivation world. Now, the water ape weapon spirit in front of him had clearly called out its details. How could Lu Ping not be shocked? How did this water ape know about the 12 Gentian formation? However, Lu Ping did not have time to think about this problem at this time. Now that he had trapped the water ape weapon spirit, the next thing to do was to find a way to kill this weapon spirit. If it was in the past, Lu Ping naturally would not even dare to think about this. After confirming that this water ape was the weapon spirit of the cauldron of heaven and earth, he had already tried to escape. But now, Lu Ping was determined to take a gamble. He wanted to see if this weapon spirit really had an immortal body. The reason was that when the device spirit was being chased by Lu Ping with the Ling Bao scissors, it was clamoring and taunting Lu Ping that he couldn't kill it. However, it was still pestering Lu Ping, waiting for the cultivators of Wuxing School to kill it. What this fellow said was right, but it didn't know that its arrogant words had angered another existence whose status was no lower than its own. Who said he wouldn't die after killing him? You can kill it. It's the artifact spirit of a heaven-splitting artifact. The praying mantis began to complain incessantly. The process of chasing after the artifact spirit of the heaven-splitting artifact made the praying mantis both excited and apprehensive. However, it couldn't kill it. At this time, the praying mantis was already scared. I can. You? The praying mantis wanted to taunt her, but it suddenly remembered her identity and changed its words. How do you kill it? Trap it. Otherwise, if it runs around like this, if I miss my attack, my identity might be exposed. The praying mantis couldn't help but say angrily, what a joke. You haven't seen it yet. Right now, this fellow's most powerful ability is the ability to travel through the void. How can you trap it? Who said it can't be trapped? The 12 Gentian formation can trap it. Can the 12 Gentian formation trap the heaven-splitting artifact spirit? At this time, even Lu Ping couldn't hold it in anymore. He sent his divine thoughts into the core space and asked, the 12 Gentian formation can trap everything. Of course, the caster's cultivation level must be high enough. Otherwise, it won't be an accident if someone breaks through and rushes out. How do you know? Lu Ping looked at the weapon spirit that appeared in his hands and couldn't help but wonder how she knew so many things. Intuition, the intuition of a weapon spirit. The Gentian formation seems to be of the same origin as me. I can feel it. In the end, Lu Ping chose to believe it. While chasing after the water ape weapon spirit, he secretly set up the 12 Gentian formation. Earlier, when the water ape crashed into the protective wall of the formation but failed to break out, Lu Ping finally heaved a sigh of relief. He also felt a little more confident in killing this weapon spirit. He had to speed up. This weapon spirit must have a connection with the original body. Otherwise, Once the Wuxing school reacted and sent any great cultivator to work with this weapon spirit, he might not be able to handle it. Moreover, he would be targeted by a huge sect like the Wuxing school. This time, the water ape weapon spirit was really panicking. Although it couldn't escape the spatial blockade of the 12 Gentian formation, it could still travel through the void within the space of the Gentian formation. Although Lu Ping spared no effort in chasing after it, he couldn't completely control it for a while. Without the confidence that he could kill it with one strike, Lu Ping still waved the spirit treasure in two and kept exerting pressure on the water ape weapon spirit. An inexplicable wave went straight through the formation wall of the 12 Gentian formation. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He immediately guessed that this weapon spirit could not hold on any longer and wanted to contact the original body. He was afraid that the people of the Wuxing school would sense it soon. In fact, if it weren't for the 12 elemental star array formation, Lu Ping wouldn't have been able to detect the strange fluctuations. Although the water ape spirit couldn't break the 12 elemental star array formation, the strange fluctuations it emitted were something the elemental star array formation couldn't do anything about. Lu Ping took the opportunity to compress the space of the 12 Gentian formation step by step. At the same time, he compressed the water ape weapon spirit's activity space. In order to prevent the water ape weapon spirit from escaping from the Gentian formation while traveling through the void, Lu Ping carefully compressed the space of the formation. "You're dead. You're dead." The water ape was now flustered and exasperated. It kept shouting as it dodged Lu Ping's scissors. While it was speaking, half of its head was cut off by the scissors, and it hurriedly went back into the void. Lu Ping was secretly delighted. The water ape was now in a panic. At the moment, the range of its void traveling had been controlled by Lu Ping to a very small space. The time to kill it had come. Lu Ping's surroundings began to move even though there was no wind. His 200 years of painstaking cultivation was almost comparable to that of a pure young cultivator's divine will. In an instant, a strong wind was stirred up in the narrow space. Before the water ape weapon spirit could come out of the void, Lu Ping stretched out his right hand, and a purple-gold long sword appeared in Lu Ping's hand. The moment Lu Ping grasped the long sword, a meter-long sword light suddenly appeared at the tip of the sword, ready to be unleashed. At the same time, Lu Ping's divine will had already locked onto a slight spatial fluctuation. Lu Ping silently counted to himself. Then, the long sword in his hand trembled, and the flying sword rose into the sky. It transformed into an azure dragon in midair, whistling as it pounced towards the slight spatial fluctuation that Lu Ping had discovered earlier. Right at this moment, the moment the green flood dragon pounced over, the water ape just happened to break through that space and appeared, and it immediately sensed the arrival of danger. The water ape cursed in its heart and sighed at its bad luck. It had encountered such a troublemaker that didn't fear death and refused to let it go. Moreover, it just so happened that this person's divine perception was profound and was actually able to predict the location of the water ape's spatial divine ability in advance. Moreover, he possessed a pair of scissors that wasn't lethal but could indeed cause harm to the water ape. This time, he was right again. Let it be cut. What else can I do? I won't be able to kill him anyway. I just need to wait for the people from the 5 Elements sect to come. I will definitely teach this brat a good lesson to vent the hatred in my heart. However, I have already informed my main body. Why hasn't the people from the 5 Elements sect come yet? There was a hint of anxiety in his expression. Although Lu Ping did not participate in the battle at Luo Xian Mountain, he did not need to guess to know that the battle at Luo Xian Mountain must have been extremely tragic. However, Lu Ping knew that Xiao Baiyu and the 3 pure young cultivators in the water vein were definitely enemies of Wuxing school. While Lu Ping was refining the weapon spirit of the cauldron of heaven and earth, there was such an explosion in the sky. Naturally, Lu Ping thought that it was related to the cauldron of heaven and earth. Wuxing school must have realized that something was wrong. Fortunately, Wuxing school's opponents were not easy to deal with, so Lu Ping had to speed up. In Lu Ping's opinion, Wuxing school would rather give up the water vein of the cauldron of heaven and earth and risk their lives to save the weapon spirit of the cauldron of heaven and earth. However, she really coveted the water ape's spirituality, so she could only fly around the sword of true spirit. At this moment, the sword of true spirit began to rapidly shrink, turning into a 3-inch sword that directly entered the space in Lu Ping's heart. In the place where the sword of true spirit had disappeared, a dazzling white ball of light filled with pure yang aura and extremely rich aura remained. This was the condensation of the water ape's spirituality essence. Of course, the essence had already been completely devoured by Emoli. Seeing this, Linglong was overjoyed. She leaned on the edge of the wine cauldron and opened her mouth to suck. A white light extended from the ball of light and entered Linglong's mouth. Lu Ping saw that Linglong's stomach was rapidly expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. The ball of light had only been reduced by half, but Linglong had already become a meatball. All right, that's enough. Do you want your stomach to burst? Although your body as a weapon spirit isn't afraid of being damaged, if you were to burst like this, all the spiritual light you absorbed earlier would have been wasted. In fact, Linglong had already reached her limit. However, when she saw that she had only obtained about half of the essence after using all her strength, she felt a little unwilling. After hearing Lu Ping's words, she reluctantly jumped into the wine cauldron and began to refine and absorb the spiritual and pure yang essence in her stomach. Lu Ping tilted his head slightly and said, "Brother Halves, aren't you going to absorb some as well?" The praying mantis shook its head and said, "These things are no longer of any use to us. You still have a few spiritual treasures under your command. Let's exchange them." Lu Ping laughed in his heart. It wasn't that this praying mantis was arrogant. It was just that this praying mantis had been chased by the water ape weapon spirit under Lu Ping's command and had cut it more than 10 times. Although the water ape weapon spirit's body was weakened every time it was cut, in fact, this praying mantis had already taken the lead. Even if it coveted these things now, there was no room for it to absorb and refine them. Therefore, it might as well pretend to be arrogant. In the future, it would be able to gain a lot of face among the spiritual treasure weapon spirits under Lu Ping's command. Lu Ping then released the thin water-flowing sword, the nether water sword, the cloud sail, the purple jade bracelets, and the other spiritual treasure weapon spirits to absorb the remaining spiritual light balls. However, the weapon spirits of these spiritual treasures could only absorb a very limited amount. The reason for this, aside from the potential of these spiritual treasures themselves, was that the water ape was a water attribute weapon spirit after all. The thin water-flowing sword and the nether water sword could absorb a little more, but the other spiritual treasures were much weaker. At this time, there was only a quarter of the spiritual light balls left. The weapon spirits of the thin water-flowing sword and the other spiritual treasures had already returned to the core space to begin refining their gains. Lu Ping didn't know what to do with the remaining spirituality light orbs. The most important things in these light orbs were the spirituality and pure yang energy contained in them. Unfortunately, these things couldn't be preserved, especially the spirituality contained in the light orbs. After a long time, it would naturally dissipate. At this time, Lu Ping's eyes suddenly lit up. He reached out and patted the other shoulder. Lu Xiaoping crawled up from behind Lu Ping and stood on the other shoulder. The original strength of this avatar of Lu Xiaoping's was only equivalent to a third of Lu Ping's strength when he was at the early Dharma stage. After Lu Ping had advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, Lu Xiaoping's strength seemed to have lagged behind. After that, in the series of battles that Lu Ping had encountered, Lu Xiaoping had rarely used it. Even though this avatar was made with an 8,000-year-old willow wood as its foundation and was made using a secret technique passed down by the Longhuai ancestor, and was said to be able to grow stronger as its master's level of practice increased, this process was bound to be extremely long. It required a large amount of time and energy from Lu Ping's inner yuan to nurture it. Although Lu Xiaoping was completely under Lu Ping's control, perhaps it was because of the secret technique passed down by the Longhuai ancestor, or the spiritual wood that Lu Ping had nurtured for decades as the core of the avatar. Perhaps it was because of Lu Ping's immense strength and the pure yang energy contained within it. Perhaps it was because of the combination of these three factors, but after this avatar of Lu Xiaoping was refined by Lu Ping, it had actually developed a faint trace of spiritual intelligence. Since this was the case, why not let Lu Xiaoping also have a try? Perhaps it could also absorb the spiritual light ball of the water ape's weapon spirit. If it could not, then the quality of Lu Ping's avatar would inevitably increase again, and its strength would also increase. It would certainly greatly shorten the incubation time of Lu Ping, and Lu Ping himself would soon have a powerful helper, and he would also have one more trump card. In fact, Lu Ping was just trying it out. He summoned Lu Xiaoping, and then pointed at the spiritual light ball floating in front of him. Looking at Lu Xiaoping's bewildered expression, Lu Ping shook his head. Is it really not possible? Lu Ping thought for a moment, and simply grabbed Lu Xiaoping in his hand, and directly threw him into the pure young aura ball. Then, he cast a levitation technique under Lu Xiaoping's feet to prevent him from falling out of the light ball. Unexpectedly, just after Lu Xiaoping fell into the light ball suddenly shrank towards the center. Lu Ping's eyes lit up. This guy really can absorb it, but it is still too stupid. Besides knowing to ask Lu Ping for the best quality spirit stones to maintain its body, its other instincts are really pitifully low. Soon, Lu Xiaoping's ee-ya-ya sounds of joy came from the light ball. Obviously, at this time, the little guy had already felt the benefits of the light ball and began to play happily inside. Lu Ping saw that the light ball shrank again, and then it stopped moving, and the little guy was still laughing and playing inside. Lu Ping knew that he was not out of danger yet, so he stretched out his hand and kept the very unwilling Lu Xiaoping. Not bad, not bad. This little guy actually has expressions and likes. It seems that after absorbing the spiritual light ball, the spiritual wisdom of this avatar has indeed increased. As the last spiritual light ball, Lu Ping originally had no choice but to abandon it. Who would have thought that at this time, when Lu Ping was about to put away the natal gentian array, the white feather lotus array closed, along with the 12 gentian and the spiritual light ball? Lu Ping was stunned. As his natal mystic treasure, he naturally knew everything about the white jade lotus array formation like the back of his hand. After the spiritual light orb was absorbed by the lotus array formation, it was quickly absorbed by the 13 natal mystic treasures. Among them, the lotus array formation absorbed the most spiritual light orb. But at this time, the white jade lotus array was just a top spirit nurturing magic weapon. How could it absorb these spiritual light balls that contained rich pure yang qi? This made Lu Ping puzzled. He could only push these reasons to Zhao Daoren, who was most likely the creator of the 12 gentian array, the 7th patriarch of Sky Splitter. They could even open up this world. So it seemed that it was not a big deal to let the spirit-nurturing magic weapons absorb pure yang qi, right? Just when Lu Ping trapped the water ape artifact spirit with the natal primal Qin array, Xiao Baiyu and the other 7 pure yang martial artists finally broke through the continuous attacks of the pure yang 5 disciples and came to the center of the 5 elements grand array at the cost of 2 serious injuries and 2 minor injuries. The treasure cauldron of heaven and earth, which was suspended high in the air, emitted dense colorful light to the surroundings, maintaining the operation of the pure yang 5 elements formation, and at the same time, trapping Xiao Baiyu and others in the formation. Relying on the magic of the formation and the combination of the 4 ape-headed and human-bodied device spirits, the pure yang 5 sons could travel through the void in the space of the 5 elements formation at will and appear privately without being discovered. At the same time, they could gather the power of the 5 people at any time and attack Xiao Baiyu and others repeatedly. Under the cauldron of heaven and earth, Shui Lingzi was sitting cross-legged. When he saw Xiao Baiyu and the others, he was shocked. He stood up and wanted to escape. However, Xiao Baiyu and the others had risked their lives to reach this step. How could he let Shui Lingzi escape so easily? Chapter 1245. Seeing that Shui Lingzi was about to escape, Xiao Baiyu was the first to rush out from the 8 people. At this time, Xiao Baiyu would no longer care about the 8 people being separated. As long as he could kill Shui Lingzi, even if it was just to tie him down, the other 4 would have to hold back. In fact, when Shui Lingzi saw Xiao Baiyu and the others coming, his first reaction was not to teleport away, but to fly away. Xiao Baiyu was already sure of his guess. Shui Lingzi did not fuse with the ape-headed spirit like the other 4, so he would not be able to travel through space as easily as the other 4. Sure enough, when they saw Xiao Baiyu flying towards Shui Lingzi, the other four who were about to join forces with 8th Sister Zhu and the others were suddenly shocked. They turned around and attacked behind Xiao Baiyu. At this time, Fenglu and the others knew that success or failure depended on this one move. They immediately chased after them and tried their best to stop the four from rescuing Shui Lingyun. Originally, the pure young four sons who had fused with the four ape heads had the geographical advantage. Zhu Bajia and the others couldn't catch up with them in any case, but at this moment, the four people didn't know why, but during the flight, they all stopped at the same time. 8th Sister Zhu and the others were overjoyed when they saw this. They swarmed up and attacked the four people. On the other side, Xiao Baiyu also successfully tied down Shui Lingzi. At this time, although Shui Lingzi could still borrow the strength of the other four people, it was obvious that the strength of the other four people was too far behind after fusing. In fact, at this time, the pure young four were facing the harassment of 7 fans Laozu and the sudden chaos of the cauldron of heaven and earth. They could not operate the pure young 5 elements formation smoothly. Not only Shui Lingzi, the strength of the other 4 people was suddenly weakened to a certain extent. The pure young 5 secretly complained. Previously, the cauldron of heaven and earth's water ape did not return, which had greatly limited the strength of Shui Lingzi and affected the power of the pure young 5 elements formation. However, in order to smoothly fuse the Qingming River and the Yulon River, only the water ape spirit could forcibly entangle the 2 water veins together temporarily to ensure that the water transformation talisman would eventually completely fuse the 2 water veins. Now, for some unknown reason, the water ape was trapped in the Azure Profound River. Previously, because the other 4 artifact spirits had suddenly received the water ape's artifact spirit's secret technique for help, the operation of the pure young 5 elements formation had almost been delayed, almost causing the pure young 5 elements formation to collapse. Fortunately, at the same time, the 4 of them forcibly suppressed the weapon spirits in their bodies. In addition, the water ape spirit originally had an immortal body. Even if it was trapped, at most it would be greatly weakened. Apart from a few other heaven-breaking artifacts, there was nothing in the world of cultivation that could bring a destructive blow to the weapon spirit of the cauldron of heaven and earth. And those heaven-breaking artifacts were all the treasures of their respective forces. Not to mention that they could not be used casually. Even if they were, no one would be able to use them. After the cauldron of heaven and earth was taken out, the power of the pure young 5 could barely activate a part of the power of the cauldron of heaven and earth. It was precisely because of this that the pure young 5 did not rescue the water ape spirit in the end. At this time, the pure young 4 had already taken advantage of the fact that everyone thought that Shui Ling was the weakness of the 5 elements formation. When several of them attacked Shui Ling at the same time, the other 4 formed an encirclement around Xiao Baiyu and the others. Although Shui Lingzi did not fuse with the weapon spirit, making her the weakest link among the pure young 5 children, it did not mean that Shui Lingzi was removed from the pure young 5 elemental formation. On the contrary, Shui Lingzi was the key to the pure young 5 elemental formation's operation. Although Shui Ling could not completely borrow the power of each other like the other 4, she could still borrow power. It was just that the power she borrowed could not reach the combined power of 5 people like the others. But even if she could borrow the power of 2 or 3 people, it was enough for Shui Ling to block the full impact of Xiao Baiyu. After all, Shui Ling was still a pure young cultivator. No matter how strong Xiao Baiyu was, with the combined power of 2 or 3 water spirits, even if they still could not compete with the world's #1 sword technique, they still needed to protect themselves. In a hurry, Xiao Baiyu would not be able to break Shui Ling's defense. A second tribulation spiritual treasure water cloud hid Shui Lingzi in layers of misty mountains. No matter how sharp the heaven-opening sword in Xiao Baiyu's hand was, she only cared about standing firmly in her position. When Fenglu and others saw that Xiao Baiyu could not defeat Shui Lingzi for a while, they abandoned the other 4 and came to help. They knew that as long as they could break Shui Lingzi, the whole pure young 5 elements formation would collapse by itself even if it was suppressed by the cauldron of heaven and earth. At that time, even if the pure young 5 sons could not do anything to them because of the protection of the sky-opening artifact, at least they would have a chance to escape from the pure young 5 elements formation. Indeed, at this time, even the arrogant Xiao Baiyu no longer had the courage to attack the Wuxing school and the two water veins in the face of the cauldron of heaven and earth. At this time, under the deterrence of the cauldron of heaven and earth, everyone was lucky to be able to escape with their lives. How would they dare to interfere with the Wuxing school and the two water veins? The sky-opening artifact was the sky-opening artifact. As long as the cauldron of heaven and earth was still in the Wuxing school's position in the cultivation world would not be shaken. However, at this time, the other pure young four sons did not immediately rescue Shui Lingzi at the critical moment when everyone rushed to Shui Lingzi. Instead, they each occupied a position and formed an encirclement, encircling everyone, including Xiao Baiyu. A rich five-colored light sprinkled from the mouth of the cauldron of heaven and earth. This five-colored light fell on the pure young five sons. A five-colored halo connected the five of them, and Xiao Baiyu and the others happened to be in this halo. Xiao Baiyu and the others saw that Shui Ling was the weakness of the pure young five elements formation, but the pure young five sons also beat them at their own game. With the assistance of the cauldron of heaven and earth, they set up a formation within a formation, and in turn, they schemed against Xiao Baiyu and the others. The consequence of this scheme was very likely that some people would pay the price of death. Among the 8 people including Xiao Baiyu, Lin Yu Laozu, and Yuan Xiaotian were the weakest, and had already been seriously injured. 8th Sister Zhu and Yuan Pokong, who was supposed to be in the front, also carried a lot of injuries. Although the other 4 people were not injured, each of them had consumed a lot of their Zhen Yuan. Even Xiao Baiyu's expression changed at this time. Everyone's heart sank, but at this time, even if they wanted to regret, it was too late. They could only go down the dark path and attack Shui Ling with their remaining strength. At this time, it would depend on whether Xiao Baiyu and the others would be the first to repel Shui Ling, or the pure young five sons five elements chain would be the first to kill everyone. With the help of the five-colored brilliance of the cauldron of heaven and earth, no matter how Xiao Baiyu and the others attacked, Shui Ling still maintained his position and did not waver. At this time, the five-colored halo that was connected to the pure yang five sons suddenly rotated, forming a huge five elements millstone, and slashed towards the 8 people. The pure yang five sons had already seized the initiative. At this time, Xiao Baiyu and the others were almost in despair. However, these people who had experienced the baptism of hundreds of thousands of years, even in the most desperate time, would maintain a never-give-up mentality. At this time, it could even be said that they were in a desperate state of mind. These pure young Laozu still persisted in attacking Shui Ling in this situation. Seeing that they had succeeded, the pure young five sons were already beaming with joy. However, at this moment, a great change suddenly occurred. 4 miserable howls suddenly came from the bodies of the earth spirit, the wood spirit, the fire spirit, and the gold spirit. The joy of the pure young five sons suddenly froze on their faces. The cauldron of heaven and earth made a loud bang, as if the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing. The five-colored brilliance that was spat out from the mouth of the cauldron was suddenly converged. The 4 ape-headed spirits jumped out from the bodies of the pure young 4 sons, and then fled back to the cauldron of heaven and earth like rats on the street. The 5 elements millstone that was about to hit them suddenly turned into a spiritual wind and was blown away. This sudden movement not only shocked the pure young 5 sons, but also Xiao Baiyu and the others. What happened? The cauldron of heaven and earth trembled violently in the 5 elements space, as if it was about to leave this space. Although the pure young 5 sons' faces were ugly, they took action at the same time to suppress the trembling of the cauldron of heaven and earth. It seemed that the 5 of them already knew what happened. Although the cauldron of heaven and earth had been controlled by the pure young 5 sons, the entire space was still on the verge of collapse. It looked like it was about to collapse. If the invisible space collapsed, then the pure young 5 elements great array would naturally collapse. Xiao Baiyu was the first to react. He waved the sky-splitting broken sword, and a sharp sword light once again slashed toward Shui Lingzi. Fenglu and the others immediately followed up. Without the support of the cauldron of heaven and earth, although the pure young 5 sons could still barely maintain the position of the 5 elements great array, under the siege of everyone, they were already powerless. Seeing that Shui Lingzi was about to die, and the other four could not save him in time, they simply stopped saving him. Instead, they took advantage of the remaining power of the five elements' great array to attack the others. At this time, Xiao Baiyu and the others were already an arrow at the end of its flight. They were still fighting with their last breath to escape. Although the pure young five sons had fewer people than Xiao Baiyu and the others, they could still fight because of the five elements' great array. At this time, even if Shui Lingzi died, at least Lin Yu, Lao Zhu, and Yuan Xiaotian, who were seriously injured, would definitely die. Even 8th Sister Zhu and Yuan Pokong, who were obviously exhausted, might not be able to escape unscathed. However, at this time, Xiao Baiyu suddenly slashed again. Chapter 1246. As Xiao Baiyu's sword suddenly slashed towards the fire spirit, Feng Lu and Qi Laozu, who had been by his side, immediately followed suit. Before this, because he had to withstand the attack of Xiao Baiyu and the others, Water Spirit had spent all his energy on defense. Xiao Baiyu suddenly changed his target, and Water Spirit was unable to effectively restrain him. And the Fire Spirit was originally charging towards Lin Yu Laozu, who was already seriously injured. However, when Xiao Baiyu turned around and attacked, not only did Lin Yu Laozu immediately escape danger, but how could the Fire Spirit withstand the joint attack of Xiao Baiyu, Feng Lu, and Qi Laozu, who was seriously injured? Under the Pure Yang Five Sons' repeated attacks with the help of the Pure Yang Five Elements formation, these three people did not have any injuries except for the great consumption of their qi. It could be seen that among this group of people, these three people were the strongest. Yuan Pokong and Jin Lingzi clashed head-on, and then staggered towards the back of Xiao Baiyu. Seeing that Yuan Pokong was seriously injured, Jin Lingzi naturally did not want to let go of this opportunity. Just when he was about to catch up and give another blow, he saw a tiger with two wings suddenly pouncing on him. One ape and one tiger worked together to repel Jin Lingzi's pursuit, while Yuan Pokong spat out a mouthful of blood and was about to fall into a coma. The tiger was not in good shape either. One of its wings was broken in half, but it still carried Yuan Pokong on its back and rushed towards the back of Feng Lu and the others. At the same time, with the help of Shimin Mingyu, 8th Sister Zhu also got rid of the trap of Earth Spirit. After breaking out of the siege, she immediately approached Xiao Baiyu and the others. Among the 8 people, Yuan Xiaotian's situation was the most dangerous. He was already seriously injured, and now he had to face the attack of Wood Spirit. Helplessly, he jumped up and rushed backwards. In front of him, Mu Lingzi was also biting on tightly, not letting up in the slightest. However, Yuan Xiaotian's expression was ferocious as he suddenly roared, "Explode!" Countless bolts of lightning suddenly flashed in midair, instantly condensing into a lightning net. Even Mu Lingzi did not dare to rush through it. This Wood Spirit child actually detonated his second tribulation spiritual treasure, Thundercloud Cloth. The spirit of a spiritual treasure usually had spiritual intelligence. Unless it was a natal spiritual treasure, it was not easy to make a spiritual treasure explode. At least, it was not something that could be done in such a short period of time. The Thundercloud Cloth in Yuan Xiaotian's hands was clearly not his natal soul treasure, but he was able to make it explode in an instant. The power of the explosion was far beyond what Mu Lingzi could handle. Lightning techniques were usually characterized by great power. If it was not for the fact that lightning techniques were extremely difficult to cultivate, it would not be difficult to compete with sword cultivators for who was the strongest. However, this kind of cultivation difficulty was not a problem for the cultivators of the Yuan family. Furthermore, Yuan Xiaotian's secret technique of controlling a second tribulation spiritual treasure to explode at will was clearly out of Mu Lingzi's expectations. Even though Mu Lingzi had already tried his best to dodge before the spiritual qi self-detonated, he was still chasing too closely. Thus, it was inevitable that he would be affected. After being struck by a bolt of lightning, he flew backwards. Then, because of the lightning, he lay on the ground, twitching. Yuan Xiaotian spat out a mouthful of blood and was almost covered in blood. However, he had won a chance of survival for himself. Before he could turn around and catch up to Xiao Baiyu and the others, he suddenly felt his neck tighten. A cloud-like ribbon had already tightly bound him. This ribbon was definitely the work of Shui Lingzi. However, how was this possible? When he had retreated and detonated the second tribulation spiritual treasure, he had already calculated everything. When he had retreated, 8th Sister Zhu and Shimin Mingyu had walked past him. He should have been able to protect his back. How could Shui Lingzi's sneak attack have succeeded? Unless Yuan Xiaotian tried his best to turn his head, but the spiritual treasure water cloud around his neck became tighter and tighter. Yuan Xiaotian could only shout at the top of his lungs, 8th Sister Zhu, Shimin Mingyu, you are so lowly. His voice stopped abruptly. Shui Lingzi's spiritual treasure water cloud suddenly shrank, and Yuan Xiaotian's head was twisted off his neck. In fact, although it only took a moment for Shui Lingzi to adjust from a state of full defense, a moment was enough to decide many things in a battle between experts. Shui Lingzi had already discovered that he could no longer stop Xiao Baiyu and the others. However, at this time, 8th Sister Zhu, with the help of Shimin Mingyu, had just gotten rid of Earth Lingzi and was converging towards Xiao Baiyu and the others. Shui Lingzi took the opportunity to attack. She naturally saw Yuan Xiaotian, who was flying behind 8th Sister Zhu and the others. In Shui Lingzi's opinion, in order to protect Yuan Xiaotian, who had been seriously injured by the self-detonation of the spiritual treasure, 8th Sister Zhu and Shimin Mingyu would definitely help. As long as Shui Lingzi took this opportunity to delay the two for a while, even if she could not stop Xiao Baiyu and the others from breaking out of the encirclement, she would still be able to teach them a painful lesson. Unexpectedly, 8th Sister Zhu and Shimin Mingyu acted as if they did not see Yuan Xiaotian, who was behind them. Immediately after that was a massive tiger, one of its wings broken in half, emerging from the passageway. Atop the massive tiger's body was a withered cultivator. It was none other than the pure Yang Yao cultivator, Yuan Pajuan. At that moment, the former general of the Great Wise Ape clan had both his eyes closed. He had fallen unconscious. Then, the seriously injured Lin Yu Laozu, Qi Fan Laozu, and Feng Lu came out one after another. Xiao Baiyu still maintained the space passage, but the people who followed Feng Lu were stunned for a moment. Xiao Baiyu frowned slightly and saw 8th Sister Zhu coming out of the passage in a panic. 8th Sister Zhu, who was seriously injured before, seemed to be more seriously injured at this time, and she looked extremely panicked. Looking at Xiao Baiyu and others who maintained the passage, she looked a little uneasy. However, the cultivators who were besieging the Wuxing school below cheered again. The passage was still maintained, but Shimin Mingyu did not come out for a long time. Xiao Baiyu said to 8th Sister Zhu, who wanted to say something but hesitated, "Where is Mr. Shimin?" A trace of unnaturalness flashed on 8th Sister Zhu's face. Then she regained her calmness and said, "Mr. Shimin asked me to come out first, but after Fire Spirit fell, the other 4 people chased up like crazy. Earth Spirit directly controlled the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth, so I came out first. Mr. Shimin is not trapped by the 4 pure young disciples, right? He asked you to come out first?" No one would believe this. Xiao Baiyu asked directly, "You didn't help him?" A trace of anger flashed on 8th Sister Zhu's face, but she didn't dare to be angry in front of Xiao Baiyu. She could only say, "If anything happens to Mr. Shimin, I, 8th Sister Zhu, will owe Skyward Pavilion a favor." As soon as she finished speaking, Xiao Baiyu and others had already flown away from the place quickly. 8th Sister Zhu was stunned and immediately retreated in panic. The invisible space behind her completely collapsed, and a 5-color brilliance soared into the sky. Earth Spirit was holding a 5-color cauldron in one hand and a second disaster spiritual treasure in the other. Behind him, Gold Spirit, Water Spirit, and Wood Spirit rushed out. Seeing the 4 people appear, the cultivators of Wuxing School who were resisting the siege of other cultivators also cheered. However, they soon found that they had lost the trace of Fire Spirit, so the cheers suddenly weakened. Xiao Baiyu and others stared at the second disaster spiritual treasure in the hands of Earth Spirit. That spiritual treasure was clearly the one used by Shimin Mingyu before. Now that it was in the hands of Earth Spirit, Shimin Mingyu was obviously dead. But just at this moment, Golden Cicada Laozu's crazy voice came from above the Luoya River below. Ha ha! It's merged, connected. The two water veins are connected. Chapter 1247. Although Xiao Baiyu and others were still glad to be able to escape from the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth at this time, after a life-and-death battle, when they still heard the news that the Five Elements sect had connected the Qingming River and the Yulon River, they inevitably felt depressed. At the moment when the water veins were connected, many practitioners who were besieging Wuxing School began to retreat. They wanted to take the opportunity to kill and make Wuxing School suffer. However, when they saw the four pure yang cultivators, Laozu, who were slowly descending from the sky, and the pure yang cultivators led by Xiao Baiyu, who were watching from a distance but did not intervene, they had to leave immediately. After the two water veins were connected, it was not impossible to cut them off. However, the Five Elements sect had used a kidnapping method to connect the earth veins, water veins, mountain ranges, and spirit veins along the canal. If they were bound together, they would not have gathered at the foot of Luo Exine Mountain for this battle. Was there a way to cut off the water veins to get rid of these constraints? It was not impossible. There was indeed a treasure in the world of cultivation that could do that. Additionally, that treasure used to belong to the Five Elements sect. Unfortunately, it was later lost, and the Five Elements sect had searched high and low to no avail. In the beginning, Wuxing School did not want to use this method to steal the water veins of the Qingming River, which almost offended half of the cultivation world. Instead, they wanted to use that treasure to cut off a section of the water veins. In this way, no one would know, and they would not have to pay such a high price like now. It was a pity that the treasure was lost again, and the situation of Wuxing School was now in an extremely embarrassing situation. Fortunately, Wuxing School was lucky enough to get an item of the same origin as this treasure, which was the half-piece of Divine Talisman of Water. Although this half-piece of Divine Talisman could not cut off the water veins at will like that treasure, it could also provide a way. This way seemed to be more magnificent, but the risk was also doubled. Fortunately, they finally succeeded, so everything they had done before was naturally worth it. As long as this water vein could be kept unblocked, at least it could ensure the prosperity of Wuxing School for thousands of years. However, just as everyone in the Five Elements sect was secretly celebrating the fact that they had paid the price of a pure yang cultivator's death, in the end, they had still managed to connect this water vein. Suddenly, two streaks of blade light shot into the sky from the bottom of Luo Cliff, and in the middle of those two streaks of blade light was the newly connected Qingming River and Yulon River. All the cultivators near Mount Luoxin were stunned. The battle for the two water veins had come to an end, and Wuxing School had won. Now, someone still came to provoke them. Didn't they know that even Xiao Baiyu and the others were afraid of the shining five-colored cauldron in Earth of Earth Spirit? However, very soon, someone exclaimed, "Oh no, this person is going to cut off the water vein. Stop him quickly. Otherwise, if the water vein collapses, 1/3 of Middle-earth will collapse." Everyone, including Wuxing School, was stunned. No one expected that someone would really cut off the water vein at this time. Did he really not know the consequences of doing so? The two beams of blade light were already approaching each other. It seemed that they were really going to cut off the connected water vein. Shui Lingzi suddenly exclaimed, "Quick, quick, stop him." Then, she suddenly realized that she had made a slip of the tongue. She hurriedly said something to the other three pure yang cultivators through telepathy. The panic on her face could no longer be concealed. After hearing what Shui Lingzi said, the other three pure yang cultivators also panicked. Earth of Earth yelled, "Quick, go down and stop him. Find this person." Xiao Baiyu and the others were confused for a while, but Eighth Sister Zhu recognized the origin of the two beams of blade light. Regardless of her own injuries, she shouted, "It's the spiritual treasure having. It's the spiritual treasure scissors left by Wuxing School's water breaker Laozu. It's the other half of the water transformation divine talisman. Quick, stop the people from Wuxing School." After the scissors cut the water vein, these two beams of blade light won't cause other disasters. When Eighth Sister Zhu shouted, "Spiritual treasure having," Xiao Baiyu, Fenglu, and a few other pure young cultivators who were not seriously injured had already rushed out one after another. When 8th Sister Zhu finished explaining, the cultivators who were just spectators immediately rushed towards Wuxing School again. The cultivators, who had thought that everything was settled, suddenly realized that the matter they had fought for with all their might, and even risked their lives, still had a chance to turn things around. Almost everyone burst out with fighting spirit that far exceeded what they had been fighting for. As the saying goes, only when you lose something will you know the value of fighting hard. Previously, the people who thought that all their efforts had gone down the drain now only knew that they absolutely could not let the fallen people die in vain. They could not let the price that they had paid go without any gains. The crowd of cultivators went crazy and attacked the Wuxing School cultivators again, even more fiercely than before. Wuxing School's attention was first attracted by the two beams of light that shot into the sky, followed by the sudden attack of the crowd of cultivators. For a moment, it seemed that they were unprepared, and a few Dharma adepts were killed and injured. Among them, there was even a late Dharma adept who was already injured earlier. The 4 pure yang cultivators of Wuxing School were all furious. However, at this time, the two beams of light that were about to merge were the real threat. Earth's spiritual sun raised the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth in his palm, and a 5-colored light suddenly burst out from the cauldron. The moment this 5-colored light flashed out, Earth's spiritual sun, who was the controller, looked tired. His face was as pale as paper, as if he had aged a few years after recovering from a serious illness. Even Earth's spiritual sun, who was originally dressed like a middle-aged man, now had a few strands of white hair on his temples. The moment this 5-colored light shot out, it split into two, and then each turned into a large hand, grabbing at the two beams of light that were merging. This was the power of a heaven-breaking artifact. If these two beams of light were really the spirit treasure that Wuxing School had been searching for so many times but could not find, then this spirit treasure must at least be controlled by a true spirit in order to be comparable to the power of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth, right? Xiao Baiyu attacked with his sword, and the other 3 pure yang cultivators wanted to go forward to block it, but they were held back by Feng Lu, Qi Fanlaozu, and Zhu Beiji. Xiao Baiyu's sword fell, and Earth's spiritual sun had no choice but to separate a 5-colored giant hand to grab Xiao Baiyu's sword light. Then, the sword technique of the sky-splitting sword sage, who was known as the #1 divine sword in the cultivation world, was easily crushed by the 5-colored giant hand. However, after crushing Xiao Baiyu's sword technique, the 5-colored giant hand was also weakened a lot, and it also missed the best time to join forces with the other 5-colored giant hand to block the two beams of light. But even if there was only one 5-colored giant hand, it was still the power of the heaven-breaking artifact. Seeing that the 5-colored giant hand was about to grab one of the beams of light, a strange flute sound suddenly entered the ears of Earth's spiritual sun, who was controlling the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth with all his strength. This kind of slaying god, inherited from the ancient great god, was originally a supreme power that was extremely difficult to defend. If it was under normal circumstances, even if Earth's spiritual sun couldn't completely block it, he could at least resist it. But now, all of Earth's spiritual sun's energy was focused on controlling the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth to deal with the two beams of the spirit treasure. Lin Yu Laozu had been in a half-dead state due to serious injuries. Who would have thought that he would risk his life to attack? Earth's spiritual sun was affected, and the 5-colored giant hand couldn't help but slow down. At this moment, a talisman that was shining with 7-colored light suddenly rose from the water and went into the giant hand. 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. In the exclamations of the crowd, the 5-colored giant hand was instantly erased a little bit of its luster. Then, Xiao Baiyu chased after it with his sword, and the 5-colored giant hand was weakened again. After 2 attacks, the power of the 5-colored giant hand was less than 1/3 of the previous one. The two beams of light finally crossed each other and directly cut the severely weakened giant hand into 2 pieces. Then, in the desperate eyes of everyone in Wuxing School, the water of Yulon River in the canal to the north of Luoya River, the water of Qingming River in the south, and the water of Luoya River itself, The surface of the three rivers was as smooth as a mirror, and then it began to tremble violently. Bang! A muffled sound came from the bottom of Luoya River. It sounded like something was broken again. It's broken. It's broken. The water vein was cut off, but the earth vein, water vein, and spiritual vein along the canal were not affected or damaged at all. The cultivators who were besieging Wuxing School suddenly cheered. On the contrary, everyone in Wuxing School suddenly fell from heaven to hell. Their faces were ashen, as if they had lost their parents. Earth Spirit gnashed his teeth and said, "Search. Find out the shameful guy hiding under the water." As soon as Earth Spirit gave the order, Golden Cicada Laozu's exasperated roar suddenly came into their ears. Divine Talisman, that half of transforming into water talisman. Everyone was stunned. When they looked up, it turned out that after the two fused water veins were broken, the half of transforming into water talisman that had melted into the water before was revealed again. Golden Cicada Laozu was the first to think of this. The moment the water vein was broken, he wanted to put away the half of transforming into water talisman. Unexpectedly, the moment the half of transforming into water talisman appeared, before Golden Cicada Laozu could take it back himself, the half of transforming into water talisman suddenly sank into the water, and then disappeared from the detection of Golden Cicada Laozu's divine thoughts. Earth Spirit shouted, and the other giant hand that survived suddenly turned around and submerged into the water, ready to catch the enemy hiding under the water. In an unknown place under the water, Lu Ping looked at the mantis that was swimming back and forth on his shoulder and asked with a smile, "Are you sure that you can attract that half of transforming into water talisman?" The mantis seemed a little impatient. Hearing this, he simply answered, "It belongs to the same origin, so it will come." As if realizing that he had been impatient, the mantis explained to Lu Ping, "It has not become a device spirit, nor has it condensed a spiritual treasure prohibition. It will definitely be attracted by the aura that I showed up just now." As soon as the mantis finished speaking, a shining talisman finally floated in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping handed the talisman to the mantis and said, "Hurry up and see if you can close it. If it doesn't work, we will retreat immediately." However, just as the mantis took the half of the transforming into water talisman, a giant hand had already reached into the water. Chapter 1248. Lu Ping did not expect that it would be so easy to attract the other half of the divine talisman, and he did not encounter the fierce resistance he had imagined when he took the other half of the divine talisman. Lu Ping handed the other half of the divine talisman to the praying mantis and told him to refine it as soon as possible. At this time, a colorful giant hand had reached into the water and grabbed Lu Ping. Lu Ping's expression turned solemn. He turned into a stream of water and cast the water escape secret technique with all his might. But the five-colored giant hand seemed to have noticed him and chased after him. Lu Ping was not sure if the giant hand had found him. If it had not, he would be found by the giant hand once he slipped away with the praying mantis. Fortunately, at this time, Xiao Baiyu and others were trying their best to delay the pure young cultivator of Wuxing School, so Earth Spirit had no time to pay all his attention to the Luoya River. However, the colorful giant hand suddenly opened, and its 5 fingers were divided into 5 colors. Then, they turned into 5 colorful lights and suddenly rotated with the palm as the center. A huge suction came. Within a radius of dozens of meters with the colorful vortex as the center, everything at the bottom of the river was pulled by the suction of the center of the vortex. Lu Ping's body was no exception. The huge suction made it difficult for Lu Ping to keep his body in the water. However, at this time, Lu Ping still did not dare to move at all because he could confirm that the owner of the giant hand did not actually find Lu Ping. However, if Lu Ping made any strange movements, the person might find him instead. This giant hand and the giant hand that Lu Ping had cut off were still fresh in Lu Ping's memory. This kind of powerful magical power was definitely made by the pure young cultivator Laozu. Lu Ping was not afraid of fighting against a grand cultivator now, but a pure young cultivator was still a threshold that was difficult for Lu Ping to challenge. With a flash of light in his hand, The sword of true spirit was already in Lu Ping's hand. If things were urgent, Lu Ping could only use the sword of true spirit to cut off the huge suction of the five elements vortex. Lu Ping was confident that with the power of the sword of true spirit, he could completely break the magical power in front of him. However, before Lu Ping could hold on, the praying mantis on Lu Ping's shoulder could not hold on anymore. The white light flashed in the water. Lu Ping could even feel that the light could bring a piercing feeling when it swept past his face. Ayaya, this is bad. The third spiritual restriction. The praying mantis screamed in two. Without waiting for Lu Ping to increase the strength of his control, the constantly rising aura had already broken through Lu Ping's control. Two sharp white lights shot out from Lu Ping's shoulder, seemingly piercing through space and even the spinning five elements vortex. Lu Ping was furious. Why did something have to go wrong at this moment? When the two blade lights shot out, the five elements vortex had clearly discovered Lu Ping's location. The previously scattered suction force immediately flipped and all of it was directed towards Lu Ping. It was a vortex against a vortex. If Lu Ping wanted to cut this five elements vortex, he could only use the Sea of All River sword technique. The sword of true spirit trembled slightly. Lu Ping could even feel Mo Li's excitement about cutting this five elements vortex. However, he had to pay attention to the existence of a troublemaker today. Before Lu Ping could make a move, the praying mantis on his shoulder had already shouted, "There's no need for you guys. Watch me cut this thing." In the white light, the two halves of the mantis could finally be seen clearly again. The platinum scissors were much larger than before, and mysterious runes were densely wrapped around the two blades. The runes on the two blades echoed with each other, as if there was a strong connection between them. Once the two blades were closed, one could clearly see that the runes on the two blades happened to form a complete talisman. It was the previous half of the water transformation talisman and the other half of the water transformation talisman that once existed in the scissors in the form of two spiritual enchantments. At this time, the praying mantis's body had also grown a lot, and its whole body was more agile. Obviously, after integrating the other half of the water transformation talisman, its spirituality had increased even more. It was even more spirituality than when it absorbed the water ape artifact spirit. After the two blades of light shot through the five elements vortex, the praying mantis had just finished speaking when the two blades of light had already closed. Without a sound, the five elements vortex, which was originally still spinning, was suddenly cut into two pieces. Then, the five elements spirit light collapsed, stirring up an undercurrent in the water. The sand at the bottom of the water was stirred up, and the whole Luoya water suddenly became muddy. Lu Ping wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape. Unexpectedly, he heard a loud shout. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw a late Dharma adept chasing after Lu Ping from behind. If Lu Ping had participated in the Battle of Luo Xian Mountain, he would know that the person in front of him was the key person in this time's Wuxing School's theft of the Qingming River. Wuxing School's number 1 formation master, Golden Cicada Laozu. However, at this time, Lu Ping could not care less about Golden Cicada and Silver Cicada. After successfully cutting off the Qingming River and the Yulon River, and obtaining the item that the praying mantis had repeatedly asked for, Lu Ping could only think of running away after he had seen the battle above the Luoya water, which was at least at the pure sun level. But how could Golden Cicada Laozu allow Lu Ping to do as he wished? Ever since the Wuxing School's plan to steal the Qingming River, although all the planning and decisions had been made by Pure Yang Laozu and the others from Wuxing School, when it came to communicating with the Green Jade Canal, surveying the terrain along the way, as well as Golden Cicada Laozu's method of using the water to kidnap the various land and water veins along the way, as well as the final merging of the two water veins, all of this was planned by Golden Cicada Laozu alone. It could be said that although the Wuxing School had decided to steal the Qingming River's water vein, it was Golden Cicada Laozu who carried out the specific plan. The opening of the Green Jade Canal and the merging of the water veins were all immersed in Golden Cicada Laozu's painstaking efforts. It could be said that Golden Cicada Laozu valued all of this more than anyone else. Because of this, when the Wuxing School finally merged the water veins after paying a heavy price, it was cut off by Lu Ping. Only golden cicada Laozu could feel the feeling of falling from the sky in an instant. Golden cicada Laozu went crazy. He wanted to tear this guy who had wasted his painstaking efforts into pieces. Therefore, he rushed into the water regardless of anything. He wanted to let this destroyer taste the most painful punishment in the world. However, he forgot that the person he was chasing had easily cut off the 5 elements, giant hand of earth, spiritual sun with the cauldron of heaven, and earth with the spiritual treasure in his hand. Golden cicada Laozu made a gesture with both of his hands. In Lu Ping's perception, the water around him gradually formed a big net. Then, as golden cicada Laozu moved his palms forward, the big net of water instantly formed a water matrix. With the help of the power of the Qingming River, which was retreating after being cut off by Lu Ping, the matrix suddenly moved forward and covered Lu Ping's body. According to the local conditions, grass, wood, bamboo, and stone could be used as a matrix. Golden cicada Laozu was in the water, but he could immediately set up a matrix with the help of the power of the water vein to stop Lu Ping. Obviously, this person had reached a very high level in the matrix. Since this person was chasing after Lu Ping so eagerly, could it be that the Wuxing school stealing the Qingming River's water vein was actually his doing? However, this person was so stupid that he dared to come down here alone to kill Lu Ping. Why? Could it be because of this water matrix that was set up in a hurry? It was not that the other people of the Wuxing school did not come down to kill Lu Ping. It was because in the Wuxing school's original plan, golden cicada Laozu was the one who had the most freedom, because he was responsible for communicating with the water vein. The other people were surrounding him to protect him. At this time, they were fighting with the practitioners from various sects and individual cultivators. They really could not spare a hand. On the contrary, golden cicada Laozu was ignored, so he chased after Lu Ping. Lu Ping could even kill the water ape, the device spirit of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth. Could it be that this master of Matrix had a better control of the water vein than the water ape's device spirit? Although golden cicada Laozu could set up a matrix in the water, Lu Ping could control the source of water. The matrix listened to golden cicada Laozu, but the water listened to Lu Ping. Golden cicada Laozu's misfortune was that he used the water to set up the matrix in a hurry. With the support of Linglong's wine tripod, Lu Ping performed the magical power of controlling water. Before the matrix was activated to restrict Lu Ping, the water net matrix set up by golden cicada Laozu had collapsed. Ayaya! I'll cut, 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 cut. Clang, clang, clang. The aura of the praying mantis on Lu Ping's shoulder had become more and more violent. When Lu Ping broke the water matrix set up by golden cicada Laozu, the praying mantis seemed to have found a target to vent its anger on. It waved its big blades left and right quickly. The spiritual treasure scissors hovered above the head of the mantis. At that moment, the mantis kept swinging its 2 large blades. The 2 blades of light flashed as they chased after Patriarch Golden Cicada, intersecting with one another. The great cultivator was left in a wretched state. At this time, Lu Ping felt that the pressure around him was getting heavier. Although this feeling was not particularly familiar to Lu Ping, it left a deep impression on him. This was the pressure formed by the gathering of tribulation clouds on the eve of the arrival of the thunder tribulation. After the 2 parts of the spiritual treasure fused with the other half of the water transformation divine talisman, they began to form the 3rd spiritual restriction. At the same time, the 3rd thunder tribulation was imminent. Although Lu Ping was underwater, he had a very clear grasp of the thunder tribulation. He could not delay any longer. Lu Ping held Linglong's wine cauldron in one hand. With Lu Ping as the center, the water within a radius of 3 miles was under his control. Golden cicada Laozu, who was dodging, suddenly found that the water around him began to become extremely viscous, and his body immediately slowed down. Golden cicada Laozu panicked. When he looked up, he saw Lu Ping stretch out his hand, and 2 purple jade bracelets flew towards him. They swelled up and wrapped around golden cicada Laozu's body. Before he could struggle, the 2 blade lights had already closed around his neck, and his big head sank to the bottom of the water. Several water veins like tentacles took away Golden Cicada Laozu's storage magic item. Lu Ping put away all the spiritual treasures he had except the scissors into his core space. However, before Lu Ping was ready to escape, a bolt of lightning had already broken through the water of the Green Jade Canal and landed directly on Lu Ping's shoulder. The scissors and the praying mantis finally faced the third thunder tribulation. Chapter 1249. The Thunder Trial was a nightmare for any Dharma adept. The majestic clouds began to gather, causing the Dharma adepts and pure young Laozu, who were fighting at the foot of Luo Xian Mountain, to feel the immense pressure. This was not an ordinary thunder trial, but the third thunder trial, which had been changed to a pure young thunder trial. Who would summon the thunder trial at this time? Xiao Baiyu and the others stopped fighting and retreated. Under the coverage of such majestic clouds, once the thunder trial descended, it was very likely that they would be affected. The Dharma adepts and pure young Laozu were all targets of the thunder trial. Xiao Baiyu, Feng Lu, Qi Laozu, and Yuan Pokong, who had just woken up from his serious injuries, naturally walked together. Eighth sister Zhu saw that the four of them had left, but she did not care about her at all. She could not help but grit her teeth, and finally turned into a ray of light and headed east. Lin Yu Laozu looked at the people who had gone far away, and finally followed the Green Jade Canal towards the Qingming River. Since Wuxing School had failed to steal the Qingming River's water vein, Lin Yu Laozu naturally had to return to the water vein to train. Earth Spirit Z and the other three had also gathered together. In the previous chaotic battle, Jin's Spirit Z had sustained quite a number of injuries. However, he had also killed a mid-Dharma stage ferocious beast from Feng Lu's hands. Mu's Spirit Z's face was pale, but Shui's Spirit Z had the upper hand. Eighth sister Zhu was already injured, so naturally, she was not his match. Earth Spirit was entangled by Xiao Baiyu and the seriously injured Lin Yu Laozu. Because he had continuously used the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth, his hair had already turned white, and he looked like he had suddenly aged 10 years. It's the thunder trial of the numinous treasure. Earth Spirit, on the other hand, had calmed down. On the contrary, it was Water Spirit who suddenly became excited. The numinous treasure thunder trial came not earlier or later, so it can only be the fusion of the numinous treasure and the half of the divine water talisman. These originally belonged to my broken water sect, and they are the foundation of my broken water sect's inheritance. Earth Lingzi growled. All right, what's the point of saying all this now? Retreat now, and don't let the lightning tribulation affect you. This is a pure young lightning tribulation. Seeing the unwillingness on Shui Lingzi's face, Earth Lingzi helplessly said, after we leave the range of the lightning tribulation, set up some scouts around the area. Once the lightning tribulation is over, no matter if we succeed or fail, we will search for the person who cut off the water vein. We will not stop until he is dead. Water Spirit's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but Earth Spirit had already shouted, let's go. The first lightning tribulation is coming. The cultivators of Wuxing School hurriedly flew out. At this time, Mu Lingzi suddenly shouted, where's Martial Nephew Jin Chan? He went to chase after the person hiding in the water. Why hasn't he returned yet? Earth Lingzi's face became even gloomier. He said in a low voice, it's too late. We can't wait for him. Everyone, retreat now. At this time, Jin Chan Laozu had not escaped from the water. Obviously, he was already dead, or the person controlling the spiritual treasure to face the third lightning tribulation was him. However, the people of Wuxing School obviously did not have such an extravagant hope. In fact, Earth Lingzi's words had already determined Jin Chan Laozu's death. The Battle of Luo Xian Mountain, which involved almost half of the cultivation world of the Central Earth, suddenly scattered because of the arrival of the pure young lightning tribulation, leaving only dark clouds covering the sky. Then, a green lightning broke through the dark clouds, and the whole world was illuminated. Lu Ping looked at the spiritual treasure scissors that was floating in front of him worriedly. The mantis had already hidden in its body. When the first lightning tribulation fell, the spiritual treasure scissors was bathed in the raging lightning. The voice of the mantis came from the spiritual treasure, shouting, "So cool, so cool." Lu Ping did not know whether to laugh or cry. He scolded, "Don't be careless. The lightning tribulation is not easy to deal with. The 9 lightning tribulations are getting harder and harder. That's why you took the first one, which is the easiest." The mantis laughed in its body and said, "Boss, don't worry. Now that the halved origin has been replenished, going through the 3rd lightning tribulation to become a pure young spiritual treasure is just a formality." How arrogant. However, Lu Ping thought about the halved origin again. Could it be that the mantis was telling the truth? The 3rd lightning tribulation was really nothing to him? The halved origin of the spiritual treasure was naturally the water transformation divine talisman made by Taoist Chan. It was something that could even be destroyed during the battle between Jiao Daoren and Peng Daoren. It should be known that the halved origin of the spiritual treasure was able to become a 2nd tribulation spiritual treasure with just half a water transformation divine talisman. Now that the torn divine talisman had merged into one, it seemed that it could cross the 3rd lightning tribulation and become a pure young spiritual treasure. As he spoke, another 2 lightning tribulations fell in succession. The mantis was still shouting in its body. Sure enough, the pure young lightning tribulation did not have any effect on it. Soon after, another 3 lightning tribulations fell. This time, the power of the lightning tribulations had increased by several times. The mantis finally did not dare to shout anymore. Only the scissors was bathed in the lightning. Even Lu Ping, who was standing at the side, felt a sense of trepidation. When the 4th lightning tribulations fell, Lu Ping already felt that it was similar to when he had faced the 1st lightning tribulations with the Sword of Real Spirit. It should be known that when Lu Ping had summoned the 1st lightning tribulations with the Sword of Real Spirit, the power of the lightning tribulations was comparable to the 2nd lightning tribulations that ordinary practitioners faced when they advanced to the late Dharma stage. Furthermore, the lightning tribulations that spiritual treasures faced were usually weaker than the lightning tribulations that practitioners faced. With this increase and decrease in power, the power of the lightning tribulations still made Lu Ping so nervous. This showed how strong the power of the pure young lightning tribulations were. When the 5th lightning tribulations fell, the power had already exceeded the last lightning tribulations that Lu Ping had faced during his 1st lightning tribulations. When the 6th lightning tribulations came, the mantis finally cried out again. However, this time, it was a cry of pain. This fellow had finally tasted the power of the lightning tribulations. It seemed that it had been hit hard. "Boss, come and help me. It hurts too much." When the lightning tribulations fell on the body, it would pass in an instant. In the process of the lightning, countless bolts of lightning carried the pure yang qi, constantly changing and improving the quality and grade of the target. This was often the most difficult part of the lightning tribulations. If one could not withstand the lightning tribulations, they would at most be seriously injured or even turned into ashes by the lightning tribulations. However, if one managed to withstand the lightning tribulations, the pain that seeped into one's bones was even more unforgettable. Although Lu Ping knew that the first 6 lightning tribulations did not cause any damage to the spiritual treasure, the last 3 lightning tribulations were undoubtedly the most powerful. Out of consideration, Lu Ping pointed in the air and injected an extremely rich spiritual essence into the spiritual treasure. With Lu Ping's full help, the mantis immediately became smug again. Unexpectedly, the 7th lightning tribulations were a pitch-black beam of lightning. The originally faint light of the entire world seemed to be attracted by this beam of lightning. Even Lu Ping's divine sense was attracted by this beam of lightning. Lu Ping was shocked and hurriedly retracted his divine sense, concentrating it in the body of the Dharma form of the dragon in the core space. Then, Lu Ping focused all his attention on the scissors. This was a strange type of lightning tribulation that aimed to erase spiritual intelligence. It targeted the divine sense of a cultivator and the spiritual treasure's weapon spirit. He did not know if the mantis could withstand it. Lu Ping's spiritual essence was continuously injected into the scissors. He could still feel the mantis's aura from the scissors, but the mantis did not speak. In a situation where his divine sense did not dare to spread out, Lu Ping did not know the mantis's current situation, so he could not help but feel a little anxious. Could it be that the mantis's grade had fallen? Spiritual treasures that failed to undergo tribulation were different from cultivators. Sometimes they would not be completely destroyed, but their grade would fall. For example, when a second tribulation spiritual treasure failed to pass the pure young lightning tribulation, the weapon spirit would not be obliterated. Instead, its weapon spirit would be reduced to a first-stage spiritual treasure. This was not unprecedented in the cultivation world. At this moment, the mantis finally spoke. Heh, thank goodness I saved up a lot of the water ape's weapon spirit source. Otherwise, I would have suffered a great loss this time. Just as Lu Ping breathed a sigh of relief, the eighth lightning tribulation came. The lightning tribulation split into a net, surrounding the scissors in the middle. Countless lightning bolts raged in the lightning net. Lu Ping could not even see what was happening inside the lightning net from the outside. He could only hear the mantis's screams inside, and the spiritual essence that Lu Ping had injected into the spiritual treasure was being consumed like flowing water. This time, the lightning tribulation lasted a little longer. Fortunately, the weapon spirit's voice was not hoarse. Otherwise, the mantis's mouth would have dried up, and it would not have been able to make a sound. When the lightning dissipated, the mantis's screams did not stop. Instead, they became even more miserable. Lu Ping did not stop it, because he knew that although the lightning on the surface had dissipated, in fact, the pure yang power was still raging inside the spiritual treasure. However, the scream was actually a good thing. It just happened to prove that the spiritual treasure's artifact spirit was still full of spirituality, and the damage brought by the thunder tribulation had not destroyed it. If the artifact spirit could not even scream after being struck by the thunder tribulation, then it would really be a disaster. Activating the North Sea Wave listening technique, the Dharma idol's dragon head in the core space suddenly lifted up, opened its mouth, and spat out a rich purple-gold spiritual essence. This mouthful of spiritual essence even contained some of Lu Ping's source. The spiritual essence flowed through Lu Ping's fingertips and into the spiritual treasure. The mantis immediately cried out in joy, "Boss, you are really a gift in the snow." Boom! The purple lightning fell from the sky, and after the mantis let out a scream, the sound suddenly stopped. The last lightning condensed into a celestial river of lightning, rolling the spiritual treasure in the air and repeatedly scouring it. Even Lu Ping had to temporarily avoid it. At this time, even Lu Ping could not help much. Lu Ping had done all he could to help, and it was up to the mantis to survive this last hurdle. However, just as Lu Ping was waiting for the last lightning tribulation to dissipate, the seven treasures Thunder Gourd, which had been obedient in Lu Ping's core space recently and rarely caused trouble for Lu Ping, moved at this time. Lu Ping was surprised at first, but after thinking for a moment, he released the Thunder Gourd. After the gourd opened its mouth, it sucked in the celestial river of lightning, and a small lightning immediately separated from the celestial river of lightning, then disappeared into the Thunder Gourd's mouth. Chapter 1250. The Lightning's Seven Treasures Calabash was just a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. It was one of the most unique magic treasures and spiritual treasures that had been nurtured in Lu Ping's core space. Perhaps it had the potential to be the #1 spiritual treasure in the world of creation. Although it was only a spirit-nurturing magic treasure and did not have an artifact spirit, its spirituality was extremely high. However, as Lu Ping's cultivation increased, the weapons he used were constantly upgraded, and the number of spiritual treasures in his core space increased. The Lightning's Seven Treasures Calabash became more and more low-key in front of these spiritual treasures. However, Lu Ping did not forget that this treasure had the ability to absorb tribulation lightning. This was a heaven-defying ability. However, Lu Ping soon discovered that the calabash's ability to absorb tribulation lightning was limited. Now that the Lightning's Seven Treasures Calabash had become a spirit-nurturing magic treasure, it had become more and more picky about the tribulation lightning it used. As for the first lightning tribulation, It had already begun to look down on it. Previously, when Lu Ping had summoned the lightning tribulation to upgrade the thin, flowing water sword and the nether water sword to first tribulation spiritual treasures, the lightning 7 treasures calabash had been unwilling to help. However, Lu Ping knew that this was because the first lightning tribulation had no effect on the calabash's quality. After absorbing the 9th lightning bolt of the 3rd lightning tribulation, the lightning 7 treasures calabash began to twitch. The opening of the calabash spat out lightning, then inhaled again and again, as if it was suffering from indigestion. Lu Ping could clearly sense that the lightning 7 treasures calabash's quality was rapidly improving. It would not be long before the lightning 7 treasures calabash would be able to condense another treasure restriction. Lu Ping kept the lightning 7 treasures calabash into his core space. Then, he turned to look at the spiritual treasure scissors, which was also twitching. After the 7 treasures thunder calabash separated a bolt of lightning from the lightning galaxy river, even though this bolt of lightning was nothing compared to the entire lightning galaxy river that was washing over the numinous treasure scissors, it still reduced some of the burden on the mantis. As the 7 treasures thunder calabash convulsed, the lightning galaxy finally dissipated. Therefore, the scissors, which had been tempered by the lightning for a period of time, was like a fish that had lost its water, jumping over and over again. The mantis remained silent. Apparently, the 2 halves of the numinous treasure had passed through the pure young thunder tribulation without a hitch. However, the pure young thunder tribulation was, after all, the last thunder tribulation. Even if the 2 halves of the numinous treasure had Taoist Chan as its backer, it would not have had an easy time after going through the baptism of 9 thunder tribulations. Fortunately, after successfully passing the heavenly tribulation, there would be gifts from the heavens and earth. Pure yang qi would crazily surge in, causing the spirit treasure to break in two and become a pure yang spirit treasure. The heavenly flower dew, on the other hand, was a great supplement to the artifact spirit. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and recalled the lightning. The remaining lightning on his body poured into Lu Ping's body, but Lu Ping used an even more tyrannical true essence to extinguish it in one fell swoop. Lu Ping had seen many second tribulation spirit treasures, but other than the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth, which he did not know much about, the 2 halves of the numinous treasure in front of him was the only pure yang spirit treasure that had survived 3 thunder tribulations. In fact, the 2 halves of the second tribulation spirit treasure that Lu Ping currently possessed was the 2 halves of the numinous treasure. However, now that the 2 halves of the numinous treasure had directly become a pure yang spirit treasure, Lu Ping still mainly possessed first tribulation spirit treasures. Lu Ping's divine will instantly understood everything about the pure yang spirit treasure. This was because when the 2 halves of the numinous treasure were facing the last thunder tribulation, Lu Ping had injected a strand of essential essence qi into the pure yang spirit treasure. It was because of this strand of essential essence qi that Lu Ping had a closer relationship with the pure yang spirit treasure, making it easier for him to wield the pure yang spirit treasure. Easy to wield? At this time, the 2 halves of the mantis had finally absorbed all the benefits given by the heaven and earth. After hearing what Lu Ping was thinking, it sneered and said, "Boss, you should try it first. It's not that easy to wield a pure yang spirit treasure. Although this mantis is not comparable to a heaven-opening artifact, if this mantis does not cooperate with you, at least an experienced great cultivator would be able to wield the pure yang spirit treasure with ease." Lu Ping weighed the scissors in his hand, which had become much larger, and said with a smile, "Oh, your grade has increased, and your temper has also become bigger. You're actually this mantis now?" The 2 halves of the mantis said proudly, "Of course, I'm now the #1 numinous treasure under you, boss. Naturally, I'm also a person of status. Naturally, I have to act." A dense purplish-blue true essence suddenly surged in Lu Ping's hand. Without communicating with the artifact spirit beforehand, the scissors suddenly rose into the air under the control of Lu Ping's true essence. Then, 2 blades of light shot out and quickly cut a huge rock lying at the bottom of the river into 2 neat pieces. Then, Lu Ping casually turned his hand, and a small fish that was swimming in the river, less than an inch long, was neatly cut in half from head to tail, without any deviation. Lu Ping used the two halves of the pure yang spirit treasure to make two scissors in succession, and then the third scissors went towards the bottom of the river. A huge trench suddenly formed at the bottom of the river, directly going dozens of feet deep into the riverbed. The sudden opening of the trench caused the water to sink, forming a whirlpool on the surface of the water. Fortunately, at this time, because they had to avoid the thunder calamity of the spirit treasure that had been cut in half by the scissors, there was not a single practitioner near the bottom of the river where Lu Ping was at. Therefore, no one would notice the huge commotion that Lu Ping had made at the bottom of the river. At this time, how could the two halves of the mantis not understand Lu Ping's intentions? He immediately gave in and said, "I'm convinced, boss, I'm really convinced. In your hands, the pure yang spirit treasure can be used however you want, and it's indeed very easy. Please stop and save me some face. I'm a pure yang spirit treasure after all. Cutting a rock and digging a trench. If word of this gets out, I won't be able to keep my face." If it was an ordinary mid-Dharma adept, it would be really difficult to use a pure yang spirit treasure. Even among the late Dharma adepts, there would be some who would not be able to use a pure yang spirit treasure continuously and still be able to supplement their true essence. However, Lu Ping was able to cut the spirit treasure in half and use it as if it was his own arm without the help of the weapon spirit. After this, two halves of the mantis had advanced to become a pure yang spirit treasure. It did not wait for it to become arrogant before it was suppressed by Lu Ping until it lost its temper and lowered its head to admit its mistake. However, this fellow was a thick-skinned master, and after advancing to the pure yang spirit treasure, its spirituality had increased greatly, and it actually knew how to figure out what Lu Ping was thinking. It immediately lowered its head to admit its mistake and did not dare to speak up again. In reality, after Lu Ping had consecutively used the spirit treasure in two halves, the true essence in his body could not be replenished for a period of time. However, at this time, the strength of Lu Ping's true essence had already reached an unbelievable level among the adepts of the same level. This kind of discomfort only needed a moment for Lu Ping to catch his breath, and he would immediately recover. In reality, if Lu Ping were to summon the Dharma power of the dragon in the process of fighting an enemy, even without the help of the weapon spirit, if Lu Ping wanted to continuously use this pure yang spirit treasure scissors, there would not be such a situation where his true essence could not be replenished, unless Lu Ping's true essence was exhausted. If he wanted to exhaust the true essence in Lu Ping's body, perhaps even if Lu Ping was asked to fight with a cultivator of the same level for 3 days and 3 nights, he might not be able to do it. Moreover, where in the world could he find a cultivator of the same level who could fight with Lu Ping for 3 days and 3 nights? This was also because Lu Ping wanted to suppress this weapon spirit that had achieved pure yang. If it was in the normal process of fighting an enemy, when the spirit treasure had already been refined by Lu Ping with a trace of origin, there would not be a problem of cooperating with Lu Ping. With the full cooperation of the weapon spirit, even if Lu Ping did not summon the Dharma power of the dragon, he could continuously use it without exhausting his true essence. The well-behaved praying mantis immediately began to show its treasure to Lu Ping. After advancing to a pure yang spirit treasure, although the weapon spirit was still in the form of a praying mantis, at this time, it could leave its body and exist outside. Even if it left its body, its strength was still considered good. This was exactly the same as the weapon spirit of the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth that Lu Ping had killed previously. Lu Ping suddenly became a little interested and asked, "Can't you kill it?" The praying mantis suddenly remembered something. Before, it only cared about becoming a pure yang spirit treasure and showing off to Lu Ping, but it forgot that there was an existence in Lu Ping's core space that could kill a pure yang weapon spirit. She was the spiritual treasure of the director in front of it, and her status was much higher than its own. Before, it was really too complacent. Fortunately, now that it had advanced to pure yang, it should not be afraid of her now, but in the future, it must have a good relationship with that little girl. With that little girl's background, if it advanced to pure yang in the future, it would definitely be 10 times more powerful than itself. The praying mantis calmed down and said, "If we don't encounter Miss Emoli, a pure yang spirit treasure of the same level, or a pure yang Laozu who controls some secret techniques, and a real spirit like Lao Tzu, it will be a little difficult to kill us. With this said, the praying mantis realized that there were still many things in this world that could not put him in its eyes. Although it was now a pure young spirit treasure and seemed to have reached the peak of spirit treasures, it also knew that its body could not be compared with treasures like the heaven-opening artifact after all. It had already been suppressed by Lu Ping, and its arrogance was restrained a little again. Lu Ping laughed in his heart. At least this guy did not have his tail in the sky. The question just now was naturally Lu Ping did it on purpose. Seeing that the praying mantis was a little disinterested, Lu Ping took the initiative to ask, after advancing to pure yang, "This is not all you have. What else do you have? Tell me, choose the good ones first." Hearing this, the praying mantis suddenly became spirited and said, "Boss, how about we steal this water vein of Qingming River?" Previously, after the two branches of Qingming River and Yulon River were cut off, the branch of Qingming River had lost the guidance of the formation and retracted into Qingming River along the Green Jade Canal. However, this natural retraction was not as fast as the speed at which it was pulled out. It would take at least 3 to 5 days for it to completely retract. Lu Ping was stunned and said, "Intercept the water vein? Isn't this what Wuxing School has always wanted to do but could not do?" "That's because we are not here," the praying mantis finally said arrogantly again. But what he said was the truth. However, there was still a problem that had to be solved, otherwise, it would not be easy to intercept the water vein. Chapter 1251. Water veins were the condensation of the essence of a river. Naturally formed water veins were usually connected to the mountains and terrains that the river flowed through. This was the creation of heaven and earth. Cultivators could borrow and even control part of it, but it was extremely difficult to cut it off directly. Although water veins seemed weak and fleeting, it was precisely because of this that they could connect to the mountains and terrains. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to cut off water veins. The bigger the water veins were, the harder it was to cut them off. Just like the Qingming River and the Yulon River, it was basically impossible to cut them off. However, even if it was possible to cut off water veins, very few people would do it. Cutting off water veins was actually making an enemy of heaven and earth. Not only would the cultivators be attacked by some disasters caused by the water veins being cut off, but it would also cause great damage to the world of cultivation. Therefore, water veins could not be easily touched. However, there were actually some shortcuts. For example, Wuxing School could secretly draw a branch out of the water vein of the Qingming River. It would not hurt the foundation of the water vein of the Qingming River, but it could also bring great benefits to Wuxing School. However, it was not easy to separate a branch out of a complete water vein. Even as powerful as Wuxing School was, they had planned for hundreds of years and specifically prepared for dozens of years before they dared to do it secretly. That's easy. After merging with the other half of the water transformation talisman and going through the third thunder calamity, the mantis obviously became more intelligent. It answered without thinking. The reason why Wuxing School wanted to secretly cut off a section of water vein and bring it back to Wuxing School was that they had the cauldron of heaven and earth, which could control the spirit veins in the world. They could totally keep the cut-off water vein in the cauldron of heaven and earth and bring it back. We can do it too. Lu Ping suddenly understood and said, "You mean Ling Long? Can she do it? She is just a first tribulation spiritual treasure. How can she compare with the cauldron of heaven and earth?" This time, Ling Long made a mistake but gained great benefits. At this time, she was already eager to make a contribution. Hearing what Lu Ping said, she quickly said, "I can do it." Mantis nodded and echoed, "Ling Long can indeed do it, but Ling Long is not like the cauldron of heaven and earth. She can only keep the water vein for a very short time. Now I don't need to think about cutting off that water vein. This branch of the Qingming River is ready-made, and I can be considered as the fisherman who benefits from it." The praying mantis grinned cheekily and said, "Boss, I am your spiritual treasure. Isn't looking for me the same as looking for you? But it will be difficult to find us at this time." Lu Ping was slightly delighted and said, "Oh, is there a good way to avoid them?" At this time, Lu Ping did not need to think to know that many people were rushing to the place where having Mantis had gone through the heavenly tribulation, especially Wuxing School. Their plan of hundreds of years had been ruined by him, so they must be gnashing their teeth in hatred. At this time, Lu Ping had already followed the Green Jade Canal to the south. However, Lu Ping had already caught up to the retreating branch of the Green Netherworld River. With the help of Linglong's power, he entered it and followed the retreating branch towards the Green Netherworld River. However, Lu Ping also knew that this was very risky. It was very likely that he would be discovered and suspected by others. The praying mantis's two forelimbs moved back and forth, and with a clang sound, he said, "Boss, don't forget what we have." What was the praying mantis's background? It was the water transformation talisman. With this treasure in hand, would he still worry about being discovered? Then the person who was searching for Lu Ping would be like the seventh patriarch of Skysplitter. Not far from the foot of Luo Xian Mountain, Earth Spirit was hovering above the water where the Thunder Calamity had come previously with his hands behind his back. At this time, Lu Ping had already left after the Thunder Calamity. There had been no news of Patriarch Golden Cicada until now, so it was obvious that he was already dead. The broken spiritual treasure was nowhere to be seen, but he had seen the 9 Thunder Tribulations. The broken spiritual treasure was probably a pure Yang spiritual treasure by now. Speaking of pure Yang spiritual treasure, Earth Spirit unconsciously touched his sleeves and sighed. If the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth was an ordinary pure Yang spiritual treasure, this battle of Luo Xian Mountain might have a higher chance of winning. However, if that was the case, it would not be easy to pull the 2 large river veins that were drawn out. This was something that could not be helped. Earth Spirit opened his eyes slightly and looked to his side. He opened his mouth and asked, "Didn't find it?" As he spoke, Water Spirit appeared like a cloud of mist. He nodded with a bitter smile and said, "The one who dares to disturb at this time is probably a pure Yang cultivator who has been hiding. Otherwise, he would not be able to stay in the water vein when the Water Ape Weapon Spirit mobilized the water vein." Earth Spirit said, "If the other party has a spiritual treasure that can control the spiritual vein like the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth, and the person is extremely proficient in water attribute techniques, it is not impossible for him to stay in the water vein under the control of the Water Ape Weapon Spirit. He does not have to be a pure Yang cultivator." Water Spirit said, "What about Golden Cicada? Although he majored in formations, his strength is not too weak. Even an ordinary Grand Cultivator would not be able to kill him easily. How could it be possible if he is not a pure Yang cultivator?" Earth Spirit did not dwell on this question. Instead, he asked, "The spiritual treasure in 2 parts was originally the spiritual treasure of the Water-Broken lineage. You should be the most familiar with this spiritual treasure. Do you think it has survived the pure Yang lightning tribulation this time?" Shui Lingzi didn't even need to think about it before replying, "Of course it has. The 2 halves of this spirit treasure were originally half a water divine talisman, and after cutting off the water vein, it absorbed the other half of the water divine talisman. Whether it is quality or other aspects, it has already reached the threshold of a pure Yang spirit treasure. More importantly, it is a water divine talisman personally crafted by Daoist Chan. Becoming a pure Yang spirit treasure may be difficult for other spirit treasures, but it is not a problem for it." Earth Spirit nodded and said, "Ah, the water transformation divine talisman. I'm afraid that this person has used this item to escape from all the searches. If he used the water transformation divine talisman to escape, I'm afraid that even we would not be able to find him. I'm afraid that only Daoist Chan would be able to do it." Water Spirit did not continue Earth Spirit's words. Instead, he asked, "What should we do after returning to the sect? Not only did we mess things up, the cauldron of heaven and earth has lost one of its 5 pure Yang weapon spirits. The cauldron of heaven and earth's magic will definitely be greatly reduced. Will Laozu?" Earth Spirit glanced at her and said, "If Laozu blames us, the old man will take responsibility for this matter. However, the old man is curious about how that person killed the Water Ape Weapon Spirit, who has an immortal body. Can the spiritual treasure in 2 parts do it?" Water Spirit was stunned for a moment and said, "The pure Yang spiritual treasure in 2 parts might be able to do it, Earth Spirit uttered an "oh" and muttered to himself. Then what method did this person use to kill the water ape artifact spirit? Right at this moment, a loud roar came along the Green Jade Canal from afar. The water of the Green Jade Canal, which had already been connected to the canal, suddenly became turbulent. The speed of the water flow suddenly increased, and the sound of the flowing water even created white waves. Although the two branches of the Yulon River and the Green Netherworld River had already shrunk, the Green Jade Canal was still open. It could be considered as a convenience for people to travel between the north and the south. Water Spirit was shocked and said, This is the branch of the Green Netherworld River. Someone is cutting off this branch." Compared to Water Spirit's excitement, Earth Spirit was much calmer, as if he had already guessed that this would happen. He said, "With the Water Transformation Divine Talisman and the Pure Yang Spiritual Treasure in two parts, the old man would not let go of this branch of the water vein." However, now the old man has somewhat understood how the Water Ape Weapon Spirit was able to shake the water vein and still be able to hide in the water vein. Water Spirit immediately reacted and said, "Senior brother, are you talking about the imitation of the wine cauldron of the universe?" Earth Spirit nodded. Water Spirit asked again, "Then, what should we do? Should we go after him now?" Earth Spirit shook his head and said, "It's too late. With the protection of the Water Transformation Divine Talisman, there is no need to be afraid of being discovered. Our school's hundreds of years of planning has finally become someone else's wedding dress. Our school has also paid such a heavy price for this. I really can't accept this. I only hope that someone will be able to find out his identity. Our whooshing school will definitely not let this person off." Earth Spirit turned around and disappeared, but his voice still lingered. "Inform all the practitioners of our school to return to the school immediately. Beware of the secret revenge from other sections. Junior Sister Shui, take some people with you and escort the branch of the Yulon River back. The person has already stolen the branch of the Green Netherworld River. The Yulon River branch must not have any more problems." A few days later, above the Green Jade Canal, Lu Ping was comfortably lying on the back of the black tortoise. A huge praying mantis was running back and forth on the back of the black tortoise. It seemed to be extremely curious. Lu Ping had really returned to the Green Netherworld River before heading north along the canal. He was not afraid of being suspected by others. On the contrary, those who dared to go north along the canal at this time just proved that they had nothing to do with the battle at Luo Xian Mountain. What's more, Lu Ping's mid-Dharma stage cultivation was even more confusing. No one would have thought that the person who had cut off the water vein and killed the Five Elements Sect's Array Grandmaster was a mid-Dharma stage cultivator. He had even managed to escape the encirclement of so many cultivators. Lu Ping's trip was actually for Samling. Samling was still in the hands of the whooshing school, so Lu Ping had to go and rescue him. What a pity. If it wasn't for the fact that Linglong's endurance has reached its limit, we could have completely taken this branch of the water. Looks like we have to let Linglong go through the second thunder trial as soon as possible. The praying mantis ran up and down, his mouth chattering non-stop. Even if we summon the second thunder trial now, it's too late. The remaining half of the branch has already retracted back into the main branch of the Green Netherworld River. It'll be difficult to pull it back again. But even this half of the branch is enough for you, boss, to use for your training. This is for you to enjoy alone. Your level of training will skyrocket in a short period of time. Chapter 1252. The Battle of Luo Xian Mountain was the second time after the Battle of Qingming River that Pure Yang practitioners participated in the Central Plains cultivation world. It involved almost half of the cultivation world. In this war that had been triggered by the Five Elements Sect's theft of the Qingming River's water source, the number of sects and individual cultivators participating in the war, as well as the number of Pure Yang Dharma adepts participating in the war, was the highest in the last few thousand years. In this battle, the biggest highlight was that Wuxing School used the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, one of the 6 great divine weapons of Kai Tian. It blocked the joint attack of various sects and clans. If it was not for the accident at the end, Wuxing School's plan to connect the water of Yulon and Qingming River would have been achieved. Wuxing School set up 4 5-elements formations at the foot of Luo Xian Mountain. The Pure Yang 5 used the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth to set up 2 Pure Yang 5-elements formations. They blocked the siege of 10 Pure Yang practitioners, including Xiao Baiyu, Fenglu, Yuan Pokong, and Shimin Mingyu. They successfully killed 4 of them. The Pure Yang 5 also paid the price of Fire Spirit being killed by Xiao Baiyu, and the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth losing a weapon spirit. The battle between the rest of the Dharma phase was even more tragic. Both sides suffered casualties, but there was no doubt that Wuxing School was more prepared. In comparison, the enemies of Wuxing School paid a greater price. However, the final result was a lose-lose situation. Wuxing School had connected the 2 water veins, but it failed at the last moment. Although the alliance of sects paid a greater price, Wuxing School's plan was finally stopped. However, in the end, there was still one person who benefited the most from this battle. That was the mysterious cultivator who cut off the water vein of the 5 elements sect with a spiritual treasure under the Luo Xian Mountain and took away half of the water transformation talisman of the 5 element sect. He also successfully summoned the Pure Yang spiritual treasure Thunder Tribulation and finally obtained a Pure Yang spiritual treasure and cut off half of the water vein of the Qingming River under the surveillance of various sections. Only the Pure Yang practitioners of Wuxing School knew that this mysterious practitioner also killed the Water Ape weapon spirit of the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth and the number 1 formation grandmaster of their sect, Golden Cicada Laozu. There was another incident in this battle that spread like wildfire in the cultivation world under the manipulation of Wuxing School. During the battle, 8th Sister Zhu, a Pure Yang practitioner of 9 Mysteries Tower, and Shimin Mingyu of Skyward Pavilion, first teamed up to trap Yuan Xiaotian, a Pure Yang practitioner of the Yuan family. Then, after Xiao Baiyu broke the Pure Yang 5 elements formation, 8th Sister Zhu turned around and left Shimin Mingyu behind. Shimin Mingyu, who was besieged by the 4 Pure Yang practitioners of Wuxing School, was finally refined by Earth Spirit using the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth. When the news spread, the entire cultivation world was in an uproar. To put it bluntly, 8th Sister Zhu was the one who started the battle in Luo Xian Mountain. It was because of her jumping up and down in the cultivation world that so many practitioners came to Luo Xian Mountain to stop Wuxing School from stealing the Qingming River's water vein. Wuxing School's act of stealing the water vein certainly harmed the interests of many sects and individual cultivators in the cultivation world in Central Region. However, the one who suffered the most was the 9 Mysteries Tower, which was currently being besieged by Mara's army. It could be said that everyone came to avenge the 9 Mysteries Tower, but not only did the 9 Mysteries Tower turn against them, but they also tricked these people. For a Pure Yang practitioner of the Holy Land to do such a despicable thing, it was truly repaying kindness with enmity. This time, 8th Sister Zhu sneaked out of the besieged 9 Mysteries Tower to eliminate the turbulence of the Qingming River's water vein. Most importantly, she wanted to call on the entire cultivation world to rescue the 9 Mysteries Tower, which had been besieged by Mara's army for 10 years. However, she did such a thing at this time. Looking at the 2 Pure Yang practitioners who were directly tricked by 8th Sister Zhu, one was Pure Yang Laozu of the world's number 1 family, and the other was Skyward Pavilion's Shimin Mingyu, who had a close relationship with the 9 Mysteries Tower and was also born in a Holy Land. 8th Sister Zhu's act of repaying kindness with enmity was too extreme. The Central Plains cultivators, who were originally thinking of rescuing the 9 Profound Tower and putting an end to the Demon Luo calamity from the perspective of the bigger picture, immediately retreated. Who knew if this was a plot by the 9 Profound Tower? If they were to be scammed by 8th Sister Zhu and become cannon fodder again, it would be too much of a waste. After all, the Yuan family and Skyward Pavilion were influential forces in the cultivation world. Although they didn't decide not to rescue the 9 Mysteries Tower from the cultivation world's fight against the disaster of Mara, they had already stated their severe condemnation of 8th Sister Zhu's actions. At the same time, they reserved the possibility of seeking revenge on her at any time. For a time, the Pure Yang Laozu, who was originally glorious in the cultivation world, became an existence like a street rat. Although he wasn't beaten up by everyone because of his high cultivation, there was no doubt that everyone didn't like him. As a result, the reputation of the Nine Mysteries Tower in the cultivation world declined a lot. At this time, as the biggest winner of the Battle of Luo Xian Mountain, after returning to Qingming River, he immediately rode his spiritual pet mount, Black Tortoise, and headed north along the Qingyu Canal opened by Wuxing School. Lu Ping held a purple jade slip in his hand, and the contents recorded in it were continuously imprinted in Lu Ping's mind. Detailed explanation of Wuxing School's formation. This could be regarded as the most important inheritance of the Wuxing School's formation inheritance, and this complete inheritance of the formation was obtained by Lu Ping from the storage device of Golden Cicada Laozu, who died in his hands. Lu Ping was not very proficient in the formation, but he had a deep understanding of it. From this detailed explanation of the formation, Lu Ping could know that a considerable part of the formation inheritance of Wuxing School was influenced by the cauldron of heaven and earth, so most of the formation achievements could be related to the five elements, especially the mastery of various terrains and veins. It was also because of Wuxing School's research and achievements in this aspect that they were able to steal the water vein of Qingming River by opening up the Qingyu Canal. However, Lu Ping saw a lot of the recorded contents, which were similar to the combination of the formation and magic power that was often used in the overseas cultivation world to guide the veins of earth, spiritual veins, and even islands. This detailed explanation of the formation would be of great use when he brought it back to Jinling. Lu Ping was not a formation master, so he only knew a little about these things at most. However, what Lu Ping paid attention to was the loopholes, defects, and shortcomings of the formation inheritance of Wuxing School recorded in this detailed explanation of the formation, as well as various ways to crack the formation. After imprinting these things in his mind, Lu Ping put away the jade slip. The things recorded in this jade slip were vast and profound, and Lu Ping could not understand them all in a short time. He could only remember them for now, and ponder them bit by bit in the future when he had time and energy. With a flash of light in Lu Ping's hand, a ring of 5 colors appeared in his hand. This was a first tribulation spirit treasure from Golden Cicada Laozu. This spirit treasure ring was riding on the ring of 5 elements, and the 5 colors on the ring were divided into 5 elements. This spirit treasure could be directly used as a spirit treasure to fight against enemies, and at the same time, it could also be used as a formation plate tool to quickly set up a formation. For a formation master, it was a top-grade treasure. This spirit treasure could not be a better gift for Black Fox, but now this treasure was of great use to Lu Ping. Moreover, when Lu Ping had sprouted the first samling 5 elements leaf, it was immediately snatched away by the Dharma idol of the dragon. Moreover, the Dharma idol had carefully suppressed it in the pure yang pearl. It could be seen that the samling 5 elements leaf was not only used to make up for a cultivator's damaged essence. As for the rest of the things, Lu Ping had handed them over to Debao. Debao would pick out the useful things for Lu Ping. As for the things that were not needed, he would sort them out and leave them to Lu Ping. Chapter 1253. Lu Ping suddenly turned around and stood up from the back of the black tortoise. His divine thought even created a breeze on the canal, spreading all the way to both sides of the canal. Soon, Lu Ping discovered something. The conveyance light under his feet flashed and brought up a stream of water. The water then scattered in the air and quickly turned into a mist, which then condensed into clouds. Lu Ping's body had disappeared in the clouds, and the condensed clouds also converged with the clouds in the sky at this time. It was difficult to see which cloud was the one Lu Ping was riding on, and which was the real one. Wave treading technique. After Lu Ping refined the pure yang spiritual treasure in half, he had a very deep understanding of the water transformation talisman, and his control of the North Sea 12 orthodox techniques became more and more proficient. Lu Ping's current divine thought level had far surpassed that of a grand cultivator, and was even close to that of a pure yang cultivator. After his divine thought spread out without any hindrance, it could even cover a distance of 50 to 60 miles. Just 50 to 60 miles away from the canal, Lu Ping stepped on the clouds and spread his divine thought again. He muttered to himself, "What a familiar aura! Isn't this the aura of the pure young cultivator, Lao Tzu, who guided me to the Qingming River? In the Qingming River, because the Wuxing school separated and let out a branch of the water vein, the entire Qingming River's water vein was abnormally turbulent. Lu Ping tried several times, but he could not enter it. In the end, he entered it under the guidance of a pure young cultivator who passed by. This might be just a whim for the pure young cultivator, but Lu Ping still remembered the aura of the pure young cultivator very clearly. If it were not for the pure young cultivator's help, Lu Ping would not have gained such a great benefit in the Battle of Luo Xian Mountain. Violent spiritual energy fluctuations came from tens of kilometers away. It was clear that a great battle was taking place there. Moreover, the aura of this pure young cultivator was mixed in the battle, causing Lu Ping to hesitate for a moment. A battle involving a pure young cultivator was obviously not something that Lu Ping was willing to get involved in. Furthermore, from what Lu Ping could sense with his spiritual force, this pure young cultivator's aura was fluctuating abnormally. This was obviously because he was seriously injured. Furthermore, from the looks of the battle, this pure young cultivator, Lao Tzu, did not seem to be in good condition. However, if he didn't go, Lu Ping would feel guilty for receiving help from this pure young cultivator. After all, this pure young cultivator had helped Lu Ping before. In the end, Lu Ping decided to go and take a look. It would naturally be best if he could help. However, if the situation was critical and Lu Ping might die if he went, then Lu Ping would not care about his conscience. After all, it was just a simple favor. It was not to the point where Lu Ping would risk his life to help. Lu Ping opened the cloud sail, and his whole body became even more ethereal among the clouds. Then, under the gentle breeze, he slowly moved towards the place with spiritual energy fluctuations. 30 kilometers away, Lin Yu Laozu was surrounded by the 5 great Juzi of Wuxing school. The 5 great Juzi joined forces to form the 5 elements formation and actually blocked the attack of the pure young cultivator, Lin Yu Laozu, firmly trapped him in the formation. At this time, Lu Ping had slowly approached the sky not far away from the battle. However, when he saw the people fighting in the battle, Lu Ping was still slightly surprised. Lu Ping did not appear during the battle at Luo Xian Mountain, so he did not recognize Lin Yu Laozu. At that time, this pure young cultivator was obviously the one who helped him enter the water vein. However, at this time, this pure young cultivator's face was as pale as paper, and his feet were unsteady. It was obvious that he was seriously injured and fighting with the 5 people in front of him. The 5 great Juzi of the 5 elements sect joined forces to block the attack of a pure young cultivator. This might seem unbelievable to outsiders, but Lu Ping, who was in this situation, could clearly see the reason why. Although Lin Yu Laozu was a pure young cultivator, at this time, he was seriously injured and his strength was greatly reduced. Although the 5 great Juzi of 5 elements were only at the mid-Dharma stage, each of the 5 great Juzi was the best of the best among the cultivators of the same level. In the world of cultivation, even if they encountered a great cultivator at the late Dharma stage, they were confident that they could escape unscathed. These 5 great Juzi of Wuxing school were the first direct disciples of the 5 schools. Together with the support of the formation, it was completely possible for them to trap a severely injured pure young cultivator. Moreover, at this time, it was not that Lin Yu Laozu did not have a chance to escape, but he might have to pay a higher price. Most importantly, there were 2 young early Dharma adepts beside Lin Yu Laozu. Although these 2 early Dharma adepts were not weak, they were not enough to deal with the 5 great Juzi of Wuxing school. Although the 2 of them were working hard to attack the 5 elements formation, in reality, they had become Lin Yu Laozu's burden. Lin Yu Laozu had to defend against the attacks of the 5 great Juzi of 5 elements and take care of these 2 people at the same time. The situation was getting more and more dangerous. Senior Lin Yu, as long as you hand over the 2 people behind you, we will let you go. How about that? No matter what, you are a pure young cultivator. Although we can trap you, if you are desperate and fight with your life, we will be dragged down with you. The person who spoke was a tall and well-built cultivator in his 30s. He looked honest, but his eyes were very lively. Among the 5 Juzi, Lu Ping had only seen the Juzi of the wood element, Mu Changsheng, and the Juzi of the water element, Shui Jiro. The person in front of him occupied the leading position of the five elements formation and had a pure and strong earth element technique. He must be Tu Gaoshan, who had the highest level of cultivation among the Juzi of the five elements. As for the tall and skinny cultivator, he was skillful with fire magic, so he must be the Juzi of the fire element, Huo Wuliang. The last cultivator with 9 flying swords circling around him must be the Juzi of the metal element, Jin Jirue. Hee, Wuxing School is full of people with flowery words. Do you think the old man didn't see the talisman you threw out earlier? That was the 1,000-mile voice talisman, wasn't it? I don't know who you called, Mu Lingzi or Jin Lingzi. The smile on Tu Gaoshan's face froze. These old monsters were all old and cunning. Obviously, it was very difficult to deceive them with their tricks. Fortunately, Tu Gaoshan didn't intend to let Lin Yulaozu go. This person's sect had been destroyed by Wuxing School, so he was already an irreconcilable enemy with Wuxing School. The battle at Luo Xian Mountain had caused a lot of trouble for Wuxing School. Now that he was seriously injured, he was like a tiger out of a mountain. It was the time for the Juzi of the five elements to show their power. Senior Linyu, you think too highly of yourself. In your current state, even us juniors aren't a match for you. So why bother Patriarch G? As long as a few second-generation great cultivators of our sect rush over, do you think you'll have any chance of victory? Lin Yulaozu snorted coldly and didn't answer, but his face looked much worse. He was able to advance to the Pure Yang stage by a trick and a lot of luck. Among the Pure Yang cultivators, he was really not a good opponent. Now that he was seriously injured, if a few more grand cultivators of Wuxing School came, Lin Yulaozu really couldn't deal with them. Humph. So Wuxing School is starting to take revenge on those cultivators who made things difficult for you at Luo Xian Mountain. Does Wuxing School really want to be the enemy of the whole cultivation world? It seemed that Wuxing School had suffered a big loss in the battle at Luo Xian Mountain, but in fact, the result was that the cultivators of various sects who had united after the battle dispersed. Coupled with the matter of 8th Sister Zhu, the loosely united sects became even more alienated from each other. However, Wuxing School, which had failed in their plot, didn't hide away. Instead, they began to secretly find trouble with several sects who had made things difficult for Wuxing School. This was the manifestation of the strong being respected in the cultivation world. The weak might be able to unite for a short time to check and balance the strong because of common interests, but that was all they could do. However, the weak could not always unite against external enemies. Once the alliance collapsed, the strong would be able to take advantage of it, and the weak would have to face attacks one by one. If they wanted to get rid of this method, they should never think about uniting. That could only play a temporary role. The fundamental thing was to become stronger. Only when they became strong, they could only bully others and not be bullied by others. That was why Zhenling was so obsessed with becoming a large sect. Almost all the Dharma adepts of the older generation were now fighting with their lives for this dream. Tu Gaoshan chuckled. He didn't agree with this, but he didn't refute it either. There was no one else here, and the few people in front of him were people who would definitely die. There was no need for them to hide their intentions from them. Lu Ping had received the inheritance Jade Scroll from Golden Cicada Laozu, so he naturally paid close attention to the five elements formation, which was a special skill of Wuxing School. Moreover, Lu Ping only looked at the way to break the five elements formation, so he didn't have to spend any effort to study the detailed operation of the five elements formation. He only cared about looking for loopholes and flaws. Therefore, in the short period of a month since the battle at Luo Xian Mountain, Lu Ping's understanding of the five elements formation could be considered rough. From Lu Ping's point of view, when the five elements formation operated by the five elements formation, there were actually several opportunities to seriously injure or even kill the two early Dharma adepts that Lin Yulaozu was protecting. However, they had all let it go. However, Lu Ping immediately understood the plan of the five elements formation. The five of them were very clear that Lin Yulaozu still had the strength to fight back. At the very least, he had the ability to perish together with his enemies. Meanwhile, these two could be used very well to restrict Lin Yulaozu's energy. Under the protection of the doppelgangers, it would be very difficult for Lin Yulaozu to pose a threat to the five of them. He could only focus on protecting himself. As the saying goes, if you defend for too long, you will definitely lose. When the five elements formation operated, it was famous for the five elements complementing each other for a long time. The last thing they were afraid of was the loss of inner yuan. This made them confident that they could even fight a battle of attrition with a pure young adept like Lin Yulaozu. The seriously injured pure young Laozu was nothing more than a toothless tiger in their eyes. However, they didn't expect that there was a dragon hiding in the sky not far away from them. Moreover, this dragon had already figured out their ins and outs and was still thinking of a sneak attack. This was undoubtedly a hidden disaster for the Five Elements formation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.